All right. So we should be live now. How's everyone doing? Card movers and shovels and boondock games, invest, Legend of Luke. Good to see you all. Um, so we will be having a guest on who's going to be on shortly. Someone that from the Discord that a lot of you guys will probably know, who I think will be really good to have on for the discussion that we're going to have tonight, which should be fun. If anyone else really wants to jump on for this one, you can shoot me a message on Instagram is probably the best place. If you feel like you have some stuff that you want to bring to the table around, talking about sort of non sports in general, which is the way that most people refer to any cards that are non sports. Obviously, Pokemon being the one we talk about most on this channel and being the biggest that we talk about, but there are a ton of them. So I think we're going to get into we might get into a bunch of those tonight. We may not. We're going to have to see where the conversation goes. It might be more of a broad sort of general conversation. I really want to take questions tonight. So going forward on the channel, so I've been very cautious on this channel, very cautious with really being careful with the opinions I share and try to really share sort of what I feel really confident in and try to limit sort of the speculation and the because I really don't want like anyone to hear something that I'm saying and then follow what I'm doing and then lose a lot of money or lose some money or whatever, or have a bad time and kind of take what I'm saying as too much gospel and then making their buying decisions off of that. Hopefully at this point, the majority of people who are watching this channel are pretty deep in the hobby, are pretty engaged, and certainly qualified and are making most of their own decisions, and whatever information I can share will be helpful. But I do think going forward, I am going to try and give more of my opinions and be a little bit more of a straight shooter with what I really think is going to happen, even if I do think it's speculative and fairly risky. But I do want to preface all of that, me starting to do that more on the channel again and talk about sort of what I'm doing. I do want to preface that with everyone is in a very different financial situation. Everyone can afford to take different levels of risk. For me, because I really, really like all of this cardboard and it makes me really happy to collect it and enjoy it. And I don't need it to go up in value, or I don't need to make money. It gives me a lot more leeway to take maybe some bigger sort of speculative risks because I really enjoy that, versus what I would suggest anyone who the money that they're making in this hobby or the money that they're trying to make in this hobby is really, really important and vital. There are certain risks that I take. There are certain speculative plays that I make that I probably wouldn't suggest to many individuals out there. And as I've said many times on this channel, me personally, I would focus on I would treat this as a fun, enjoyable hobby. I would collect what I love. This is for the vast majority of people, would collect what I love and what I enjoy and what I can really afford. And I would focus, growing my skills, increasing my income at whatever work, whatever job I'm trying to do, work on your skill set, and then really start investing in things like the stock market or real estate or more traditional investments, and maybe down the line actually getting a financial advisor. Okay, so preface this conversation with all of that because I think it's important. All right, so I am bullish, and I have had a theory that I've had for 10 years now, or not 10 years. I haven't been in the game that long, so I'm exaggerating. 6-7 years, something like that now. When I first started getting back into Pokemon around then, I was looking at the prices and I was really getting engaged in the market. And I just could not believe how cheap. This is just my personal reaction to it. I could not believe how cheap these things were because I felt Like, I really liked these things so much, and I remembered on the playground growing up and just the huge mania that was Pokemon when we were kids. Okay, so um, and I just couldn't believe that I could get the very best cards in the hobby. You know, first edition WotC Hollows and PSA 10, PSA 9 for 40, 50, 100, you know, $200. Even and then the very, very best for, you know, a few, you know, 20,000, 25,000, which obviously is a humongous amount of money, but for such a major pop culture, you know, phenomenon, and given how rare some of these items were, it just, it didn't make any sense. So back in those days, for those who don't know me, you know, in my story, I was buying like really aggressively all the time, constantly, 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 constantly. Um, and I had very big expectations for the market getting much, much larger. I have posts on E4. I didn't have a channel back then, you know, stating that I just couldn't believe that I could buy these cards for $50, $40, because even at my level of salary and income and savings, I could basically own like 10, 20, 30% of these types of markets myself. And it was very hard for me to believe that there weren't, like, frankly, hundreds of thousands of people like me, let alone even like we needed maybe 5,000 to completely change the market, right? If you had even a couple hundred of me with my type of engagement, my type of enjoyment, it could radically change the prices. And because the prices were so low, I understood how easy it was going to be, basically, for these cards to go from $50, $100 to $200, $300, $400, $500. Now, the time frame I thought that might happen, I had no idea. I read a bunch of books and talked to a bunch of pop culture collectible sort of experts or whatever, and the theory that a lot of them talked about. And when I looked at things like comic books and sports cards, and trying to understand how these sort of started in some ways with fads, and then people would sort of revisit these fads later. You know, trying to understand why why did some things explode in value? Why did some of these popular culture collectibles become such phenomenons? Why did you see comic books that might have been $5,000 go to multiple millions of dollars or $1 million, you know, a few years ago at least? What was sort of the secret sauce, or the culmination of events that you sort of look for something like that happen? Okay. And that is what I still do now. And that's where I'm still looking. And in my view, like, there's so many non-sports big IPs that I still think are just incredibly cheap and only need a tiny little bit of demand to go up, you know, in a big way. We've seen this happen probably most in Marvel, where we had cards that might have been $500 or $1,000 go to 40, 50,000. You know, and I might be, those numbers might be too much. Maybe it was $5,000 cards going to $45,000 cards, depending on the specific precious, you know, PMG, for example. I expect the over the next 5 to 10 years for non-sports in general. And I think the Pokemon market will stay really strong. And we'll talk about a bunch about the Pokemon market tonight. But I expect it to become larger, more robust, and more collectors to be buying these very scarce, rare items. If everything remains equal, like, we don't need more demand in the hobby. We just need the same people to stay engaged, let alone if we actually increased the amount of people and multiple generations collecting these IPs. If you have a scenario where not only do people stay in this hobby and other types of hobbies, but not only do people stay, but then people start collecting more with their kids and multiple generations, getting them into Marvel, getting them into Star Wars, getting them into, you know, Pokemon, a bunch of the new animes, like these big types of things. We could have seen like absolutely nothing yet, particularly in the stuff that hasn't gone up, like Pokemon. and particularly in the stuff that people have shied away from and not viewed as sort of like investment vehicle, for lack of a better word, or speculative vehicle. So our guest is here. So Nick Retrospects, I'm going to bring you on, buddy. How are we doing tonight?
Good. How are you, man?
Good. So I don't know. You probably weren't catching what I was just saying because I'm sure you just jumped on. But I basically am going over why I'm extremely bullish on non-sports cards over the next 5 to 10 years,
Okay.
and why I think that there's a lot of opportunity, including in Pokemon and other areas, and that even if the people just stay here who are already here, I expect people to move into and become more general card collectors and more general non-sports card collectors. And I expect in the next 5 to 10 years, these like events like the national and other card conventions being a lot more geared to pop culture collectibles and pop culture cards in particular. And even the language starting to change. And you're going to see a lot more YouTube channels and media around not just like Pokemon and then like sports, but you're going to see it broaden out, and you're going to see there's going to be quite a bit more. And I think within that, Pokemon is going to continue to do very well and be at the forefront as it is to some extent. And I preface that all with my usual risk stuff and
Yeah.
and that, you know, tonight I'm going to share what is maybe a hope, but it's also what I am actually acting on. It's what I actually believe will happen. And I think the upside is so tremendous that it's worth the risk, particularly when you like absolutely love the stuff. So that's where we're at. So what do you make of all?
Well, really quick, what do you mean by you think the language is going to change? Like, what did you mean by that specifically?
So generally, like in a lot of these hobbies, so like in the sports card hobby. Oh, did I lose you for a second? In the sports card hobby, like it used to just be like baseball, right? And we've seen what's happened in sports card hobby. Like people would just call it baseball cards, and then it spread, and then you started getting the major sports blowing up and having huge markets, and then you started getting things like F1 and golf and tennis, and right, you saw it sort of broadening out into all that sort of stuff. And then there's this whole non-sports area, which I think is actually way more undervalued, way more underdeveloped, and lacks a bunch of leadership. Because
Okay.
I think a lot of these markets earlier on, they're formed by collector dealers, these guys that I talked to who are like in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and they have sort of narratives and ideas of what should be valuable and what shouldn't be valuable. A Mickey Mantle should be worth 12 million, but a first ever, superhero card or these types of things is not that valuable, even though it's rare, right? These types of mindsets that is literally just built on sort of 30 years of market reality and interest. And my argument is that because a culture is shifting, social media is shifting, and that if you have more leaders in the space who actually come out and say, I really like this stuff, it is extremely rare, this is what it is, and this can actually be a really good speculative play and also something that you like really enjoy and value. And if more of that is said in these areas and more of that's said in places like the national and different conventions, you're going to see just an increase in that. We've obviously seen places like Golden and Heritage Auctions and all these places adopt some of that, but I kind of think it's like just the beginning rather than sort of a mania we're at the end of it. What do you think?
All right. Yeah, man. I mean, I tend to agree. I made the video I just made like a few days ago was pretty much around the same lines as what you're talking about here. Basically, just saying more specific to like TCG and CCG rather than non-sport. But I do agree with you on the non-sport stuff as well. I like Marvel, Star Wars. I haven't really looked into a whole lot of the like. I know you collect those war cards, and I know there's some different like Allen and Ginter stuff. Like I've seen some cards with like birds on them that kind of look like tobacco cards, different cool stuff like that. I haven't gotten too much into that. But I think TCGs and CCGs for sure are like kind of at the beginning. I don't think that yeah, I agree with you. I think people are going to spread out. And even just from like the short time being in your Discord, and obviously like people in there are extremely engaged, but you see people moving into other things, whether it be Weiss or MetaZoo or Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever. Like there's a lot of people that collect a lot of different things and like a lot of different IPs. And I agree with you about just being like a general card enthusiast, right? And so you like a little bit of everything. I think the deeper people get into it, they start to realize there's cool stuff everywhere. You know, you might like not really be into sports, but then find a sport that you like a little bit, and then start collecting sports. Like that kind of happened with me. Like I watch sports here and there, but I got really into F1, and so now I'm like, you know, doing some F1 stuff, having a lot of fun there. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I don't have anything. I mean, obviously, what I will say is that there's probably more risk, or it feels a little bit riskier sometimes, but then the upside also feels way bigger because these markets are a lot less optimized, right? And like you might be one of the only people doing it at a certain level or looking at certain cards to grade them in that like specific hobby. So then yeah, like the risk versus reward profile is, you know, it pays off.
Yeah, so talking like specifics on that and sort of what I do, right? So you have to understand a few things. So there there are going to be like the patterns that we see here. Often the majority of the money is coming from sports cards and people who are investing in sports cards and the sports cards dealers. And a lot of these markets are sort of being made or started or grown by the same people who came from those spaces and now and think that that stuff is way overpriced compared to this other stuff, and also see good upside potential and also really enjoy it. Okay. Um, Now what happens because of that is you're seeing a lot of people like go to things that they know or they understand. So like they go from like in Star Wars right now, like a set that is absolutely blowing up in value. First it was Galaxy, which actually really has nothing to do with sports and was just growing up blowing up because it had really good art theoretically, and also influencers were talking about it and telling people that it's really good, and that, hey, believe it or not, all it takes is a few people to say, hey, the stuff isn't that bad, it's really cool, and then people jump into buying it. And that's very different than me saying you're going to get rich or this is going to be an amazing thing. But even just talking a little bit positively, and that maybe it's not a complete waste of money, it's amazing the appetite for these type of things that's naturally there, because the majority of people in these spaces love so many of these different IPs, and you're going to be connected to one more than other. You should collect the ones that you're more connected to than the other, et cetera, et cetera. So in Star Wars, we're seeing the Sapphire set. I'm not sure if you're familiar. We're seeing a booster box that came out that was like $200 a box, jump in like a few weeks to 1,000, like right out of the gate. A modern set. Okay. And in this set, we're seeing cards that are selling for like $20,000, $15,000, $10,000. Some of the number parallels.
Yeah, that's
Brand
wild.
new, unheard of in Star Wars.
So
Okay.
this is like 2022 Topps Chrome Sapphire Star Wars,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean Sapphire always
yeah.
holds like, you know, a premium, but $20,000 is kind of nuts.
Mhm.
Star Wars is hot right now. I think it's an easy transition though too. Like it's the same manufacturer, it's Topps. The boxes are
Mhm.
structured similarly, like you're getting the same sorts of refractors, the same sorts of hits. In Marvel, a lot of people really went to this set called Vibranium, and that saw a lot
Mhm.
of movement in price, and that was because like sports guys recognized the refractors. It looked, you know,
Mhm.
familiar to them. So like I can see sports guys like big money being able to make these non-sport hobbies that are, you know, produced by Upper Deck, produced by Topps. I could see those things moving because it's just it's the lower barrier to entry, I guess. Like for a sports guy to understand how a Pokemon booster box works, I guess like the dynamic, it's a little more of a change, if that makes sense. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, and yeah, it very much easily exactly. It's a comfort thing. These are very valuable in sports, so they should be valuable in this. And you know how I read that? Hard pass. An extremely hard pass on $25,000, $50,000. Like it's
Yeah.
ridiculous in my view. Like, and I said to the exact same thing about the PMGs when they got to those prices. Ridiculous. Makes no sense. Makes no sense compared to the rest of the market and where the rest of the market is at. How fully fleshed out these markets are. very dangerous. You're going after these 1 of 1s and 1 of 10s, and people are paying so much more for those than they're paying for like, and even in PMGs, you know, going for the greens or the bronzes at 199, like things you see how, like if you go into a hobby and you see the top stuff selling for crazy huge amounts, and then you see like the other numbered stuff selling for super low, red flag, in my view. Red flag about how deep the demand in the market is. And so I would read that in one of two ways. Either you've got an influencer, ridiculous sort of nonsense like product that you need to just avoid like the plague, or, and this is my opinion in a lot of these hobbies now, it shows that there's actually a lot of interest in demand. And the other stuff is probably where you should be playing and where you should be doing your research and trying to understand why it hasn't blown up, what is good in there, what is numbered, what is, you know, what is interesting, and trying to talk with as many people as possible. The newer the market is, the more people are afraid to think for themselves, has been my experience. And the more people just sort of follow the high value item and they're told what the grail is. Like people were told that the Kurosawa card was the grail, you know, from, you know, whatever, you know, and I can go into details, and people just like immediately sort of follow that. They see the comps, someone pays a high price, and then people all run there, and then dealers run there too, because they're momentum investing, and it kind of blows that up. So it's a combination of very real interest and engagement that it just took a little bit of like acceptance or encouragement to show, but then it sort of gets overinflated, gets overheated, and or the rest of the market, I think, becomes very undervalued relative to that. And we saw this, we've seen this in Pokemon. And this was why I made a lot of like those level X top zone versus series, like niche Japanese stuff. You know, it's, you see these patterns happen. It's a little bit more extreme during this environment than I ever saw it in Pokemon, also because of prices. But these types of pattern recognitions, I think, is sort of the pattern of how these things get started, and then how they fill up, and then the plays that you can sort of make if you are, you know, getting to the things before people are getting permission to buy them.
Yeah. That's funny you say that about the permission thing, because I think that's definitely true, and that's actually kind of how I approach Marvel. Like to your point about if like the high value stuff is worth all this and the rest of it's worth nothing, that's like a red flag. It was the beginning of Marvel, and I felt like it was, you know, like people were starting to talk about it and things were starting to heat up a little bit. But I actually kind of thought the opposite in some senses, because I saw a Miles PMG, a purple one, raw, in like 5 or 6 condition. Like it was pretty beat up. And I saw it sell on eBay on auction for like $13,000, right? Same time, there's a buy it now for like a red green goblin PMG from the same set out of 99, and it was $40 buy it now. And I'm like, well, Green Goblin is like, you know, arguably Spider-Man's biggest villain. This is out of 99, this one's out of 5, but this is $12,000 and this is 40. Like this seems crazy. So I bought, like, I was targeting stuff like that. Like I bought a bunch of reds and bronzes because those seem way too cheap for me. Like I was buying bronzes for like 15, 20, 25 bucks. I was like, this is crazy. These are out of 199s. These are big characters.
Exactly.
And so that's the stuff I went for. Now looking back on it, like Swami actually did a lot better than me, because he went for like the $300 cards, like the greens, the out of 10s, right? And then turned around and sold those for like 12, 13K. Whereas I was able to buy like a lot of volume, but like most of my plays were turning like $40 into like $300 versus turning $300 into 13K. And so looking back on it, like that's something I learned moving forward, is if you kind of feel that, if you feel like it's a good play, maybe pay up a little bit and go for like the out of 10 versus like trying to get the value out of that out of 99. And that's not true in all cases, but yeah, it's just something I noticed, I guess, looking back on how I approached it versus maybe how other people would approach it. So I don't know what you think about that.
I think sometimes the market has it wrong, sometimes it has it right. And I think the more, like, I think that the more people in it and engaged who aren't just chasing up the really high ones versus these lower ones, the more you're going to have like it already, the market makes sense. And so whether you buy the lower ones or you buy the higher ones, you're likely going to make the same percentage. It's just sort of One is going to be more liquid, the lower ones, but you're going to have to sell it more and you're going to have to do more deals and there's more risk with that and maybe more annoyance. I don't know. Did you actually make less than you would have, or was it just more work?
Well, I mean, just from seeing some of his like really big sales, like I said,
Mhm,
like the Doc Ock he bought was like out of 10 green Doc Ock, and he
mhm,
sold it. He bought it for 300, sold it for 13K. So I'm not exactly
mhm,
sure off the top of my head what percentage gain that is, but that's a really good flip. You know what I mean? And like I said, most of my flips were going from like 15 to 150, or from like the like 40s to 300s. And that,
mhm,
so still like 5-6xing, doing pretty good for sure. But I think if I would have like maybe focused the same amount of money into out of fives, out of tens, things like that, I would have done less work and probably made like potentially better gains. So
mhm.
just interesting. But I mean, either way, you can't complain, right? But uh, I just felt like people are gonna come into this like it and not want to pay $300 to $500 a card. Want to be
Mhm.
able to find something cool and collectible and numbered for a cheaper price. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna target that kind of stuff that like regular people can afford to collect if they're kind of getting an entry into the hobby, I guess. So.
Sorry, I'm just looking for some cards that I might want to use as examples.
No, you're all good. Well, I mean, in Star Wars, for instance, so like you went for that 101. So is that like, did you see really, really good value there as far as like what the price was, or did you just really like it as a collector, or was it some combination of both? Like, what made you go for
Yeah.
that versus maybe getting like a lower tier rarity?
So I buy everything. Is the short answer, from the one of ones to the one of fives, one of tens, one of 25s to one of the to out of 99. And I have in my mind certain price points that I'm going to buy everything at. When I go into markets like this, and a lot of it for people out there obviously has to do with like your budget and how much you can afford and what makes the most sense for you. So now one of the issues like is that is it's much easier to do what I'm doing when you actually have the capital to do it, which is an obvious statement. But it's like it's much easier to just like set a price point and be confident that you'll be able to buy every single thing. Like I will own 20-30% of the market. Anything that comes up on eBay over the next few months, like I'll be able to buy at the current prices that I'm buying within sort of my budget and what I can afford in terms of like me flipping other stuff and continuing to make profit on other stuff. And the whole time, I'm also selling a little bit of it to make little bits of profit because I'm buying things low on auction. This is something I don't talk about too much, but sometimes it's good to take a little bit of profit out when you get really good deals, and then it allows you to like continue buying. And all of that, I literally sit down and do the math. It's like how much money am I spending on this on average right now? How many of these cards are coming up? What are the odds that more of them are going to come up? Which types are going to come up? Also, how do I keep buying the Disney stuff, the Superman stuff, the Batman stuff, the Pokemon stuff if good deals are coming out? And the bigger you get, the more you have to kind of have enough money to continue all of those things. And if you can't continue all those things, then you have to start making sacrifices somewhere in sort of, because I'm bullish, so I'm trying to continue to build positions and collectibles and continue to collect because I love the stuff in all these areas. Um, but I will switch and move and stop doing one completely. Or to the point we're talking about here, I'll stop going after the one of ones because I can't really afford them right now. And I'll go for like the one of fives or the one of tens, and which I still think are going to be connected to that as long as I think the value ratio makes somewhat sense. Um, yeah, and it's just a constant sort of calculation, and obviously so much of it has to do with the deal. So like if I'm getting the one of one at a really good steal versus I'm paying up really high for the one of one, these are the types of dilemmas you might have, particularly if you think the one of ones in general are going to do the best. But often people ask really high amounts for the one-on-ones and they don't auction them off, in my experience, as much. Or some people have really sort of like, they're very connected to it. It's the only one in the world. They'll never get it back. There's a different sort of feeling, even out of the one of five, because it's like, well, there are still four other copies out there, even if it's also like insanely rare. So I think serialized stuff is really interesting in general. And I've been giving serialized a lot of thought and how it functions in these markets as compared to just a sort of overall rare type of cards or type of set or condition rarity, which is something that we deal with in Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z, something that we also both love. You and I do a lot of things that have no serialized options or items. And so it becomes a lot more about how do you determine without serialized, how do you determine rarity? And then effectively price that. What do you think about serialized versus non-serialized, and how you sort of make decisions in those types of markets and assess value?
Well, serialized definitely takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, right? Like you feel a lot safer as a speculator. Like when I was buying the bronzes, kind of like you said, like I set price targets every time they would come up on eBay within like a certain zone, I would just snap buy them. And
Yeah.
it was to the point that I was like, I can literally afford to like own these because these are cheap. These are like $20, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I can own 5, 10, 30% of like this entire card's population. And then that makes you feel safe. Whereas like some of this other stuff in Pokemon, it's just a lot of guesswork. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it's a lot of like, oh, well, this is how they were distributed, and there's dents here, and it's just, yeah, it's a lot less guesswork with the serialized stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but that being said, with the serialized stuff a lot of the time, like even if it's beat, like it'll hold pretty decent value because it's like, a serialized card. Like you can sell a card in like 7 or 8 condition for, good price raw because it's got the number stamp on it. And in a lot of these like like score, for instance, right? Like I heard you say you had like a 9.5 Super Saiyan 3. Like
Mhm.
it's probably going to be easier for you to find a nice out of 50 out of 25 Star Wars card than it is to find a 9.5 SS3 Goku. You know what I mean? Like, so it's tough, but it takes more knowledge and more
Mhm.
engagement to understand the rarity of the Goku versus and to explain to somebody the value and rarity of the Goku and why it should
Mhm.
be valued, what it should be valued at versus this card's out of 10.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So and I a lot of sports guys now especially are gravitating towards like absolute rarity
Mhm.
because the RPAs just got demolished, right? Of all these big players like the
Mhm.
Lucas and the Zion, like they're worth nothing now. Like especially in PSA 9, they're like $10, $15 cards. So like they have to go for this absolute rarity. And I feel like a lot of them are spreading out into these like non-sport things or whatever because they're seeking out that absolute rarity because they got burned on a lot of the, good players that just there was too much supply of it. So yeah.
Yeah, when we're thinking about serialized, right, we're thinking about how many 1 of 100 cards of that rookie card are there, and then how many variations, and then how many of like 1 to 150 and 1 to 200 and 1 to 250 and 300 and 500 sometimes in sports. And so when you start doing the math and then you realize, well, there's like 6 of these sets being made a year across the different brands with this different player or whatever it is, you have to add that up. That's part of your calculation. So every year, there's going to be, now the rookies are just going to be the rookie for that year, which is part of how you create some sort of like rarity. But it's definitely, and so you've seen sort of in sports, like right now everyone's talking about Mickey Mantle, right? So it's this great example of a move from serialized modern back to like the great, like historic most important player, one of, or certainly top 3, most important baseball player, top 5. I don't think anyone in the world, whatever. I think pretty safely top 3, if not top 1. um a card like that where we only have, 400, 500, 600, maybe we'll have, 1,000 or to 2,000 copies ever graded of something like that, versus we have 10 of this guy, 1 of 100, 1 of 150, 1 of 110, and how do you value that compared to the mantle? And but those markets are so much more optimized, and there's so many more people thinking about that than in non-sports right now. And you have, so you can apply the same sorts of ideas and logic and ways of analyzing that. Now, it was amazing the amount of just lack of just fundamentals that exist in the sports card hobby, and how many people even just like on YouTube or anywhere, like we're just telling people to buy like base parallel, like you like nowhere do you hear anyone talk about, guys, supply and demand. And if you don't hear someone talking about supply and demand and they're giving you any sort of like advice on what to buy, don't like, it's not useful, because really the whole discussion at the end of the day is supply and demand. So, but you have these discussions in the sports world, and you have so many of the discussions they moved into the Pokemon world. We've had so many discussions, these types of things. How many people are having those discussions in some of this vintage 1930s, 1940s, 1890s, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s non-sports pop culture stuff? How many people are discussing it with Star Wars, with Marvel, with Harry Potter right now, with new games coming out, One Piece, big animes, Dragon Ball Z, and then even Yu-Gi-Oh to some extent. Yu-Gi-Oh, and I have people who play a lot in the Yu-Gi-Oh market who talk to me like, it's amazing how little people talk about that stuff when they're buying, or how little people think about that. And when they compare it to the Pokemon market, they're like, you guys are so much more analytical and thoughtful about value, and things seem so much more optimized, and the prices make so much more sense than in our hobby.
Another thing,
such a playground right now. Sorry, there's so many cards that nobody knows. Like, I could show a bunch of Star Wars now that not a single person here probably knows what it is and seen, even people who collect Star Wars cards. How about Pokemon? It would be hard for me to find a card that nobody knew here in Pokemon.
Yeah, that's probably true. Another thing, I'd be interested to hear what you think. Another thing that happens in sports, and sometimes in Marvel too, and maybe you could say it's just coming from the sports guys, but there'll be a card, like the same Mac Jones card of a higher rarity that is a green parallel, let's say, will sell for less than a card of a lower rarity that's the red parallel, because it's a jersey color match. Like, color match is such a big thing in sports, and I feel like that doesn't really, like, sometimes people will say, oh, water Pokemon look good in a CGC case, but eye appeal is really important, like outside of Pokemon, I've noticed. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think people are more interested in that outside of like TCG, CCG?
It's the narrative. It's the top-down narrative. Do you ever hear, like, how often do you hear? I feel like when people started talking about like swirls and attractiveness, a lot of people like made jokes and taunted them.
I love swirls.
And although some of it is silly, it's really not. The fundamental discussion is not at all silly. It's about, do you like the look of the card, and do the swirls or the different hollow patterns, are they more attractive? Is where the swirlette more attractive? Like that, like those types of things show that people are actually thinking about, what do I want to own? What do I want to look at? And not just like what is just like a PSA 10 that I'm never going to look at and put away. Now, you also get that in sports. It's not like, I mean, people are all the time not talking about eye appeal, and I mean, it's not like I think everyone is sort of buying that way or collecting that way, nor do I think people ever will. I still always think PSA 10s, even weak ones, and all these types of things will have quite a bit of value over PSA 9s. And some of this eye appeal stuff, like the PWCC top 20% or 30%, I get such a kick out of. We got Swami. What's up, man?
Hey,
you guys are talking. You guys are talking about language tonight
with the slicked back hair, looking right. Okay,
I got out of bed. I just got out of bed. I threw my work clothes back on, and
oh, really? Okay.
I woke up like this, dude.
So this is a really good point to your question, Nick, that I will highlight. That makes a lot of sense instinctively to me. That they just have so many parallels that, like, even picking a slightly less rare one, but at least it matches. It's the same thing with like the serialized number of like wanting the jersey to match or whatever. It people are looking for, in a lack of rarity, people are looking for value any way they can, because people want to chase that sort of scarcity or that sort of whatever, which is interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. So something I thought about a lot, the demand in Pokemon is absolutely insane. And I think they have something special where they do just have massive print runs. they, we get the first edition, we get the unlimited. The unlimited makes it a lot more accessible, especially for like WotC.
Mhm.
But what do you think? Because I think a little bit about PMGs, and the sets that PMGs come out in are really low print, 15,000 boxes, if that, 4,200 boxes, that's super low. But what I like about the PMGs is that they have these base PMGs that allow everyone really to be able to buy the $5 version, the non-numbered PMG, the silver basic, and then they have serialized, bronze, colored. You can go down the list. And so the PMGs are kind of cool because I run into cards that are serialized and there's 75 of that card.
Swami, I'm getting a little bit of pop on your mic. I'm not sure if you're hearing that too, Nick. Is there any way to quickly just unplug or plug it back in, or just reset it? I can hear what you're saying the whole time. It's just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just gonna cancel a render. I was rendering a video.
No,
I was rendering some fire. But so I've seen serialized cards that there's 75 of them, and then that's it. There's no 10, there's no 200, and there's no base, version without a refractor type, some type of parallel. I kind of like what I'm trying to get at is serialized stuff like Star Wars and Marvel. They can only have so much demand. I think both those IPs are going to start printing more, and you're going to be able to get more people in. But like with Marvel right now, there's zero product available. The cheapest product for any of these modern sets with numbered cards in them, they're $600 plus. Pre-orders are $400 plus. So there's like a cap on demand, and I think the current demand can justify a lot of prices. But I do like, what do you guys think about Pokemon just being, there's probably their ability to have so many collectors in Pokemon is pretty special, right? And I think some of this lower print stuff kind of caps the cool thing about Marvel. They have the 1990 sets, which are kind of like your 350,000 boxes, your Pokemon base set. They have Pokemon Verse, which was pretty heavily printed. So there are like old sets that are fairly cheap that can get people in the door. But I was a little bit worried before I discovered, like Weiss and some of these other cheap sets. I was like, well, how are people even going to start collecting Marvel if everything's expensive?
Yeah, I think so. Like that's something that like Pokemon doesn't have, right? Like in sports, you have like LGS product, which is generally like more expensive and comes with like potentially better hits, and then you have like your Target product, which is like a $20 hanger box or something like that. That's maybe not. It'll have like a Target exclusive, or like you can only get it in that box, but the hits you're gonna get out of that product like aren't gonna be. And so Pokemon doesn't really have that dynamic to where like you're going specifically to a hobby store or a card store to get like a premium product or whatever. Like everything that Pokemon releases, you can just generally, if supplies are there, like you can just get it in Target. Same way with Marvel, like even Marvel Annual, which is like a more entry level set, it's a little bit cheaper. It like you have to even know it exists, you have to kind of already be in the hobby. So yeah, I agree with you that like some of this other stuff definitely has like more of a barrier to entry than like a Pokemon does for sure. What do you think, Jake?
So yeah, so I think the price point is a really good one to think about. And are there cool, enjoyable stuff at different price point that people can get? Are there any packs that Upper Deck, right, Fleer's making, or Tops, for Star Wars is making right now, that is affordable for people who might be interested, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think that that's something that is a real problem with like the bots buying everything out from the Topps website, for example, and the cheapest box like is like $200-300 like right out the gate of anything, of even like the less crazy sets, and then the craziest sets it's like $500 or $1,000 or whatever, right? As far as like if PokeRev tomorrow started to open Star Wars packs or started talking about Star Wars, I think you'd have an avalanche. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
I do too.
Like, and if you had like SM Pratt and like people and Rudy starting to collect Star Wars or talking about that Star Wars is legitimate or whatever, an avalanche, because people like it. People like Marvel. Like you can't just be sold something that you don't enjoy, right? So it's not, but like, and it's not even, you don't even need these people to say it's a great investment. It's literally just showing a lot of people that this stuff exists. Now, the price point is a problem. And that's on these companies, but again, it's sort of like, well, right now, these are sort of like premium, crazy, products. I wonder with Topps sort of losing like, these licenses to Fanatics and et cetera, and maybe moving more into this stuff and focusing more into this. I wouldn't be surprised if these companies do make more of an investment going forward as you start to see the value go up and even these boxes explode in value, because this is the first time it's ever really exploded like this, in the last couple of years. They might be having conversations of maybe this is an area where we want to grow. Maybe we want to partner with influencers, start talking about this stuff more, start showing it. Pokemon has so much going for it. It appeals to such a range of people, it appeals to a range of gender, and genders, right? It appeals to a lot more than some of these other IPs. It appeals to all different ages, and it has content that's appealing to all different ages. Hopefully they'll do more like adult content and continue that sort of thing. It's in an amazing spot. But again, just to your point, like think about how much more of this stuff is printed. And I want to bring up MetaZoo, because MetaZoo is such an important thing to talk about, in my view, in this discussion, because you saw how marketing and all of the Pokemon influencers talking about MetaZoo launched what was a brand new, not an actual thing, with print runs that were larger than any of these Marvel and Star Wars, outside of the Kickstarter, right? That had serialized cards selling $10,000 out of 100, when one of ones in Star Wars you can get for $80 or $100, or the key ones a few $100, right? When you look at that, you see the power of targeting, and Mike sent the influencers free product, which got people to talk about it, to open it, and it made them investors in it, because now they own it. They have this really expensive stuff. That means that they make money if it goes up, right? It's very smart, right? And so now there's some, and I'm not saying these influencers were like, lying, or whatever, but like it's human nature to like be more engaged and study a market when you have a few $10,000 Kickstarters, or Rusty gets sent like a bunch of sample cards. Like you're just going to be more aware of that market than a market that you've heard nothing about, that no one's ever sent you free product, that no one's ever engaged with you. CGC, all these companies, like the companies that are marketing, that are engaging, that are talking to influencers, are doing much better than the Beckett's, and so it's also all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, the IPs, it's a juggernaut waiting to be unveiled, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Maybe not as big of one, and you need to do it in a smart way. And it doesn't have the history, and it doesn't have the, like, we collected Pokemon cards as a kid, so it doesn't have the nostalgia. It doesn't connect specifically with the cards. What it does connect, though, is with the characters. And there's a nostalgia and a love for these characters from my childhood. And so that's enough, in my opinion, when you combine it with like the cool, exciting patterns, the rarity, the all these types of stuff.
Well, like Star Wars, for me, I couldn't get in Star Wars. I was watching a few people in the Discord get into it, and to me, it was like, well, this could be Marvel. It's literally the same play, a major IP. A lot of people love. They have scarcity. Star Wars, for me, I really love the Galaxy set.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I picked this up from Mile High Comics, the original It was $40, sets 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful. I picked it up just to check it out. Star Wars is Star Wars. It's one of the largest IPs ever. I really like the Galaxy set because it is a little bit nostalgic. It kind of reminds me of like the 80s posters.
Mm-hmm.
And with Marvel, I'm gonna do what Retro's doing with Bandai right now, DBZ. We're looking at a strong IP, and from my perspective, I think graded cards create markets. I think those guys that were grading Pokemon and asking PSA to grade Pokemon cards was major in where we're at today.
And part of why this stuff isn't further along is because PSA has been too expensive or shut down. So there's less of these people who have these cards. They're holding them, waiting to grade them, but they don't want to take the risk at these prices. I've been seeing Star Wars on PWCC selling. You can buy the raw card for like $5, and in an SGC 9 case, it's selling for $60.
Yeah.
A little bit here and there. And that's just because that margin is amazing. And SGC 9s are not hard to get. Let me tell you.
And it helps. I mean, people, especially with like achievement cards or strange cards, not PMGs or not the 90s sets that people are familiar with, it lets them know, it gives them, they can start looking at prices. PSA tracks a lot of sales. It's great for market confidence and awareness. There's something about it being in a slab, but then there's also something about, there's a lot that adds with market history and price history. You start getting those data points, you start feeling more confident in spending a couple $100 on a card. So I do have a lot of Marvel cards that I am going to grade when PSA is its absolute bare minimum. Who knows when that's going to be? And it's a little bit of it's kind of like a fun collector thing to do. Yeah, I'm sure I'll make a little money, but I'm actually not even planning to make a ton of money. Like if I bought a card for $2 and I grade it for 10 or 12 and I sell it for 20 and I make $3 after everything, that'd be fine with me. And it's just going to be the fun of kind of helping the Marvel card market along. That's kind of like my vision. But I think these IPs have a long way to go. I think they will get higher prints in the future, and they'll still be able to do these serialized cards, tops and upper deck. They're all experienced and know how to handle these. And we're nowhere near sports who are having a tougher time with the amount of parallels of all the new players. But I'm done talking.
Do you want to add something on that, Retro? Because AP Sports Cards here has, I think, one of the key sort of this is a very valuable thing to talk about. I don't think that it has one. It does not have like a right answer, in my opinion, or it's all one or all the other. To me, again, it depends all on like price point and like, you can have serialized stuff that has some decent history, and then you can have serialized stuff that just feels like, why do I want this other than the fact that it's low serialized, and everywhere in between. I think it's a great topic, and I think that the move to serialize has clearly been an attempt for sports to not have the junk wax era again, and to create rarity in a market where they can still sell a lot of product, and have a lot of product. So it's very interesting. What do you guys make of? And again, if you guys don't have something to add here, no need to force it, but. What are your opinions on sort of this idea of buying sort of here? Let me show, like, let's pick, I don't have my one-on-one. So it's like, do I buy this first ever Superman, number one, or do I buy the one of one modern Superman at Refractor from Topps? There isn't one, but do I, which one do I buy at the price? You know what I mean?
Red Superman PMG. Woo, that card would go to the moon. Blue Superman PMG.
If that first Superman had a pop of 10,000 PSA 10s, then it would be a completely different answer. I would go for the 1-of-1 refractor version, but I don't think that Superman does, right? The cool thing, I'm kind of digging in with Marvel right now, the serialized, you see it in these PMGs. The first PMG of a character is way more valued than most of their subsequent PMGs. Now, there are some where the artwork in later years are just super fire, and there might be 1 or 2 characters that have PMGs in 2015 or 17 that sell for more than the 13. But they do kind of place most of that value just on the first of the serialized.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I'm kind of digging into like non-serialized cards. I mean, every set from 2000 to today is in a set that had 15,000 or less boxes. So if there's a set that has 4,200 boxes and there's a really cool insert in there, people will not know it for a long time. And I think grading also helps this when you get graded populations. But if there's a card that has 60 or 70 printed ever and it's not serialized, that's where I do feel like long term, I think there's a lot of value in that because I believe in the IP, and I'm going to try and help that market along by grading all these non-serialized. But the question is on serialized. I'll let Retro go.
I was just gonna say, like I guess like Jake's question about the Superman, like is the history gonna outweigh just the obvious, which is like this is a numbered Superman with an awesome refractor that like the entire market is familiar with. I don't know the answer to that question, but I guess it's just gonna be like what. There's plenty of things in all sorts of markets that it's like, okay, well this should be, but then the market just values it is what it is, so it's like, are people coming in that are interested in Superman cards going to look at that Superman #1 and be like, okay, this is the first superhero card ever, and like that to me is more important, and is the overall broad market going to agree with that sentiment, or is the broad market just going to be like, well, yeah, this is the first card, but like, this is the numbered card. It's, from a super popular set now. It's more easy and accessible to people. You don't have to a card like that doesn't have to come with a caveat, if that makes sense, So
Jordan Rookie versus the new Jordan Rookie.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting.
I can tell you what I like about this, and it's very similar to what we talk about in Pokemon. What Topps does, and like how largely they grow and how largely they don't grow, or how many 1-of-1s they make a year, whatever, it doesn't scare me as much or impact this as much. Whereas when you're buying like those 1-of-1s or those 1-of-5s or those 1-of-10s, and again, I think it really goes to what you were saying, Swami, right? Of like, what makes this year's 1-of-1 or this year's parallel stuff stand out from the other years of parallel? And are they going to make, it's the same thing I say about like Sword and Shield era and all these eras. Like, what's going to make this era, to bring it back to Pokemon? Normally we talk about Pokemon here. It's when we add 5 to 10 years to this stuff and we add a lot more cards after that look somewhat similar potentially, why is this one going to stand out? Will it continue to stand out? Will, or will it get diluted by more and more of that supply? So that's what I think about. But it doesn't, it's about price point to some degree, which one do I think is more, which one do I think the market is more rational about? Is something I often am asking. I'm looking at it and I'm listening and I'm looking at prices and I'm saying, well, this one, people are paying 40,000. This one's only 500. That's insane. Or this one's 40,000. That one's, and I look, for me, it's about pattern recognition. There's a lot of just like pattern recognition. You see those patterns over and over again. But as you get into more hobbies, you see that different hobbies and different groups have slightly different patterns and ways of assessing value. And that's part of why I really press people when you're engaging in these types of things. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of people like talk to get a sense of how they value it, why they value it the way they value it. But I do think that you're going to see a lot more, to bring it back to what I was saying earlier, you're going to see a lot more card collectors and card enthusiasts who are interested in so many different cards in my view as this continues, and less people who are like, this is the only thing that I collect. This is the only thing that has value, and in my view, over time. Now that doesn't mean it's ever going to be a majority or even close to a majority of people. That's not what it takes. But we're talking about like 0.001% to 0.005% is a massive change, and that's what we're looking at when we think of like the amount of people who are buying Pokemon packs right now versus like the tops booster boxes or the Fleer. That is the number difference when we talk about 1 million booster boxes of this one set printed versus 1,000 or 5,000 in this other place. Like we're talking about massive differences in demand and interest and awareness.
Yeah, and I wish I knew more about this, but it's a brand new narrative. There's a new Jordan rookie. I need to know, because I know there's something about, they were worried about the amount of printed population of the 84 Jordan star. And I need to learn more about it. But once I'm going to learn more about it, and I'm going to be very interested to see how it all plays out, because it is narratives.
So narrative-y. It's hilarious.
It's incredible. So we've had this Jordan rookie, the grail of the hobby, for 40 years. And now all of a sudden there's a new narrative that it's not the Jordan rookie. It's blowing my mind, and it is going to have major implications. I don't know how it's going to play into this, but it's probably the biggest story that I'll be following for a while.
Let's look at Blueback no number Charizard from Top Zone, right? I mean, it's a selling for 500,000 and then 200,000 and then maybe down to 50,000. Because some I won't name his name, but whatever, some guy who maybe shouldn't be saying that he knows the answer to things, to come out with these small claims, saying that it was sort of the first ever, this is the first ever set, the blah, 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 and then buying up a bunch of it, talking about it, getting other people to talk about it. Much, much smaller, insignificant example, even though the values, that's an insane amount of value. But it just demonstrates how these narratives, and again, like the bigger the influencer, like right now, it's like didn't Jeff just make a video, whatever, sports card investor on it?
Yeah.
So what are people talking about? People are talking about the mantle and that Jordan. Those are like the two things that I see most people talking about on that big. Now there are tons of little channels, just like our little channel here, that gets nitty and gritty and these types of things. But you can see, like, while we're doing this, what are like the top 5 channels doing? What are they talking about in Pokemon? Where is the narrative at the moment? Generally, avoid the narrative. You should follow the narrative and engage, but like it's already been like as optimized as possible. Like it's literally getting the most amount of attention it possibly could from the biggest influencers. So, you want to be careful with that sort of thing.
So like with this Jordan, I am going to know the print runs of the Fleer 86. Yeah. I'm going to learn as much as I can about the print runs of the 84. I am never buying these cards in high grade. But I will be doing that research, and I don't think a lot of people will. I'm interested to see how far they get with the biggest sports card, that everyone knows for 40 years, how far they get along with this whole narrative. And if it takes, that would be amazing. It would be influence. It'll just be interesting to see. But I'm excited about all non-sport. Weiss is crushing it. We've got Pixar coming out. We've got Star Wars. Anything I can get at a decent price, I feel like I want to get. Dragon Ball Z. I think Dragon Ball Z is a massive IP. I'm still a heavy believer in all of Dragon Ball Z. I think Cardos and Bandai need graded cards, and that's the only way that'll really take. And it might not, rocket to the moon, but I think it'll do very well. I think Score, I think the singles, the ultra rares could do extremely well once the Rhyme Styles of the world that like Dragon Ball Super start dabbling in Score and dabbling
and
in.
it's already gone up a lot. These Star Wars, like Marvel, you know, because it only takes a tiny bit.
That's the one.
And
I love that one.
Like to Nathan's point here, like, you know, loves or points besides the enthusiast potential rise. Like it feels esoteric to me. I don't know of many collectors personally that even collect like out of 1 to 2 IP. Right. So we're in a moment where I would just expect, Nathan, that like I'm not expecting an avalanche. We're not talking about like 20% of Pokemon collectors are suddenly going to start doing this. Now, if like Logan Paul and all these people like started showing it in Gary Vee, and you could see something like that, and then you would see like actual insanity on these things, like beyond the percentage gains would be so much more than anything that happened in Pokemon. It would be insane. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a slow sort of, you know, a few people here and there, but it only takes, you know, you could add 20 to 30 hardcore fans a year, and it would and in the whole world, and it would add significantly change these markets because of how small they are. And I really think the MetaZoo thing is really important to see sort of that happen in real time, and kind of the effects of all of that to show how something can, with, you know, build a community and build and you know, to your points about like the Jordan, and to link it into all of this, once people own stuff, they have a vested interest in it. So one of the first steps is getting someone to buy something or own it, or sending out that free stuff, whatever it is. And so part of what the difficulty with this Jordan situation is, so many people have paid so much for that other Jordan. There's going to be for the actual rookie, or the you know, the whatever. I really have zero dog in the fight and don't care at all. I just think it's interesting. But there's a lot of people with a lot of money who care and have a lot of incentive to sort of care one way or the other. It's the exact same thing with like PSA versus CGC debate. People, the things that you own in your collection, you start to value, and then you have like an incentive to like keep that be the most valuable thing. Yeah.
I also think that the people that are going to collect multiple IPs are probably going to be the people, like you said, that are like really engaged in hardcore. I don't even really think it's all that esoteric, to be honest. It's just fun, you know, and maybe I'm just super nerdy and really engaged in like this stuff or whatever, but it's fun. Like I just bought a bunch of Yu Yu Hakusho score, you know what I mean? Because it seemed like a good play. I really like Yu Yu Hakusho. Like I'm getting into all different types of stuff, and like you said, like not very many people need to come in for prices to move crazy, you know, because like in DBZ score, for instance, I mean, just in the past couple months, I've just been watching like Kai, you know, like different stuff. Like me and Kai have been buying stuff, and I've been watching Kai will buy like graded slabs or whatever, or he'll buy cards, raw cards from people, grade them, turn around and sell that same card graded back to the person he bought it raw from, because it's so unoptimized in these markets. People aren't grading, but there's demand for it. It's just that nobody's really doing it. So it doesn't take a whole lot of people to come in. Because like a lot of this stuff, the thing with Pokemon is, even if it wasn't worth a whole lot before 2019, there was still a good amount of information on it. With a lot of this other dead stuff and non-sports stuff, there wasn't a lot of information because the communities were so small that now like it's hard to find an ultra rare in PSA 10 condition. Like good luck, you know what I'm saying? Whereas it's much easier to find a Pokemon card in PSA 10 condition, you know? So
even the 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds going talking about some of this earlier stuff that I collect, they don't even know how many cards come in the packs, what's in the packs, what part of the set. Like there's so little knowledge and information about the stuff that exists in the entire world, and all of that creates fear, lack of interest, lack of engagement. And all these people, like, they want stuff that they can flip and make money off and move. And so they're not going to learn about it. They're not going to talk about it. Right. So it needs to come from collectors, from people who value the stuff, from people who, you know, this Superman 1940 said, it might have changed, but there are some pops that are only 72 in the world of any grade graded. So that means there could only be 72 completed sets in the world. There are probably only 10. You know, or what, you know, or whatever, right? It's like, how many people know that? How many people even have thought that thought? versus how many people do you think have thought about how many gold stars are in PSA 10 and why people are paying $250,000 or $300,000 for a complete PSA 10 gold star set or 500,000 because there can only be 70 of these in the world or 80 of these in the world and I want one of them, or what, or they can't be that many, sorry, because you have the lowest pop one, which is pop what now 12, 13, I don't know what the Torchic is at, I forget now. But
it's also riskier too, like you said, like with the Bandai stuff specifically. Like part of the reason, like I made the intro video, which is kind of just like explaining, a bunch of stuff, and then like a second video is a box opening, because when I first got into it, like I had no idea what to expect. I just kind of like YOLO'd my money. I mean, it wasn't like thousands of dollars or anything like that, but I had no idea because that information doesn't come anywhere, right? And so like I had no idea what to expect as far as pull rates, like how many prisms I was going to get, so on and so forth. And like, there's nothing like that in Pokemon. You know what I mean? Like, what's in every single sealed product, every single gift box, whether it's some really niche Japanese, like, 2 holo deck, 2 level, like all of that is completely mapped out. But in these other games, like you go to, like even Score or whatever, like
Dragon Ball Super, their website sucks. The website is terrible. It's like you can't even function in the actual website. But I'm sorry, keep going.
No, you're good. But to be completely honest, I feel like we, as in like the extremely engaged card community, do more for a lot of these dead TCGs than the actual or even like currently going niche TCGs. I feel like we do more for promoting it and getting the information out. It's kind of like, I don't know if you guys watched that Beanie Baby documentary, but like the Beanie Baby company was like extremely like secretive, kind of like they didn't do a whole lot of like press releases or ads or anything like that. It was the ladies. They made a website, they made a magazine with all the information of the print runs, which stores you could get certain Beanie Babies from at like which locations in which states and stuff like that. Like I feel like we're doing that now for dead stuff. You know what I mean? Because who's coming out and telling you that you can get an unlimited Super Saiyan 3 out of a Boo Saga theme deck? Like who's out here telling you that stuff? You know what I mean? Like it's not like some executive from stores about to hop on and be like, "Here you go, guys." Like you have to.
It's important though. I mean, so I come out with these videos, right? I'm trying to just display everything other than 90s Impel and PMGs, but I'm getting like 40 views, 50 views, right? Hopefully something starts to tick and people can just de-escalate down. But I'm talking to these Marvel people and I'm like, look, PokemonPrice.com, Bulbapedia, E4, these 3 things we need. And they have people working on a Pokemon Price from Marvel. They have a pretty good Facebook group. I've created a Discord, but you have to like all these things have to like start playing in together, which I think having a graded Cardos at a card show where someone can try to look up information because they finally saw it. That then they need to have that Bulbapedia of Dragon Ball Z to be able to go to. Right now, the Dragon Ball Z, there's like 2, anything you want to know about Dragon Ball Z Cardos, there's 2 websites you can go to. You like one, I like the other one. But you know what I mean? Like they have that there. They're not really well known, but it all is important. I look at Pokemon as like a roadmap for what I want to do in building Marvel. I don't need to be, the face, the Gary King or the Leon Hart, but I do want to like roadmap it there. And the roadmap is grade cards, give people information, give them a market that they can wrap their heads around and go and learn about cards and just keep on keeping on with all that. But it's all important. It all wraps in. When you pick up a card and you type in, weird looking Caterpie number 69 of 108, and the internet pops up 6 different things for you to say, oh, let me read about this card. Oh, it's from Vending Series or something. That is huge. That's massive for a market. And I know Marvel doesn't really have that very well. They have one website of just everything, but it all plays a role for sure.
Yeah, well, and that goes to the organic, genuine interest rather than just like short-term stonkage, right? Because like spreading that information, trying to like build the community and be like, here's, you know, the legitimate information, here's why potentially this could be valuable, here's the pull rates, da 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 da. Like that goes more towards like growing an organic, slow interest over time rather than just like, oh no, it's the new like 1 of 5 or whatever of this player and everybody's talking about it and I gotta get, you know what I mean? Like these things have legitimate fundamentals, legitimate rarity, and all they need is exposure. Whereas like the top stuff, like the potential Superman PMG one, you know what I mean? That has the complete opposite. That has like all the exposure, but none of the like real fundamental because they can continue to print it over time. They can make new ones. You know what I mean? That make the first PMG Superman less special, like Jake was saying. These other dead TCGs, they don't have like they have great fundamentals, but they just have no exposure whatsoever. So
I do like how Star Wars is never going to end. I do like how Dragon Ball Z might not ever end. And I love what Marvel's done over the last 15 years. Like I look at some of the years over the last 15 years and they're straight repeats of Pokemon 1999, but they just crushed it and just had everybody on the Marvel cocaine diet for a whole year. You know, when Iron Man came out, 3 years later, the first Avengers movie. I mean, kids in the last 15 years, I think there's going to be a massive insurgence in 5 to 10 years of people collecting, whether it's comics. I think a lot of people will collect cards too, especially if comics keep going the way they're going with some of the prices. But which is also a very good thing for comics. It's kind of like that, you know, you got that high dollar and you're going to chase the lower dollar, whether it's condition or whatever parallel version. But it is a blast. It's all a lot of fun. It really is. I'm having a blast with it. I mean, this binder, I had to just, hey, look at this. It's the first page and it's just sick. I think Star Wars is really cool. I like to see people have a lot of fun with it. Like Parker, she's got that rainbow of Moss Eisley. And my wife and I are watching. We were watching. I think we started with New Hope the other day, and they're on Moss Eisley, and I'm thinking of Parker, and I'm like, dang, that's so cool. She's got the rainbow of Moss Eisley. Like that's just insane. This set is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, infrastructure is so key. Both the companies having good infrastructure, which we're arguing maybe could be improved upon and maybe will. And then as Swami illustrated, just seeing what Pokemon, I mean, and even before that, Gary on, and Ken Golden and, all these people, well, Ken Golden on for other things, but like Gary has told me, like, he used to stay up, like, really late at night talking to like eBirdman, and they were strategizing on how to like grow the hobby and get people interested in the hobby and not have the hobby die. Like that, like they were having hours and hours and hours of conversations. How do we bring it over here? How do we get PSA to recognize it? How do we like get it in front of people? Where do we sell it? How do we engage? Like, you need these people who want to build the market. And now you can be like very cynical and say it's all about money and it's a pump and dump and that's a very oversimplification of the reality of what is going on. When you really care about something and you really enjoy something and you want to build it out and you want more people to be engaged in it, and you're excited about something and you want people to see the value of it, like that is a reason. And Swami and I, we've had plenty of conversations about this, but it's like, how do we talk about what we love? And we like want to talk about, we want to build community around this stuff without like get hurting people, putting people the wrong way, shilling stuff up unnecessarily. 100% we can say it's not a pump and dump because we ain't dumping. You know what I mean? At the end of the day. So a lot of people who say things are pump and dumps, it's like they're definitely not pump and dumps, because the people who are like talking about them the most are the ones literally continuing to buy and putting more and more into it. And you could say, well, they're cornering the market, and then as soon as it gets really big, they're going to sell some off and et cetera, et cetera. But so much more of this is just driven by passion and enjoyment and wanting to build something, because it's so much more fun when you enjoy something that other people can enjoy it too with you. And I want to make people money, to be completely honest. And I want to make people realize how the Pokemon, like, I think all this stuff is so important because it'll make you think more critically about the Pokemon market. Like, if you're like, I'm not interested in any of this stuff, even understanding that this stuff is out there and how the Pokemon market was built. Something that really intrigued me about DBZ Score was when I got into DBZ Score, I was talking with the people involved, and they were so protective of the information. And they were like, who is this guy? Is he going to use it to, and I had a conversation with like Wolfie and some other guys, and some of them were more open to share. Others were like, are you just going to like shill this and like buy it? Are you trying to make money? Like, do you actually like this? And had that sort of reaction. Like, whereas there are a lot of people in the Pokemon who had like the exact opposite of like trying to grow it, trying to make it profitable, trying to, all these types of things. Now, of course, Pokemon also, like, we all collected this stuff as kids, or a lot of us. These other things don't have some of that. Okay. And now Marvel did, with some of like the Impel stuff from the 90s, right? Like, I mean, like some of these sets, these were insanely mass produced sets because they were really popular. They were actually popular, and tons of people, a little bit older than us generally, actually.
Yeah.
We missed that.
Yeah.
But people 5 years older than us, 6 years, 10 years older than us collected those sets often and do have nostalgia and connection to it. But nowhere near Pokemon and the size of Pokemon, and certainly the amount of sets of Pokemon, and then obviously didn't have the continued sort of success. So we're not comparing. We're not saying that that this stuff is ever or should have the demand. Not only is Pokemon a much bigger IP, attracts is 4 times the size probably of these IPs, sells so much without Serialized. I mean, Pokemon is freaking killing it.
Incredible.
It is incredible. When you compare how much more successful Pokemon is than like Topps and Upper Deck and Fleer with these sets, that they can sell like 1 million booster boxes, and then an Umbreon, like an alt art, like a card from one of these 1 million booster boxes,
yeah,
like $700. And then you have one of ones from this other product that can't get to $700, right? Like of key characters. Like, that's an amazing accomplishment, and does show you where Pokemon is at and the demand of Pokemon. And I would expect that to keep going. But I think that a lot of it has to do both with that no one is talking about this stuff. No one is getting people involved, and also the Topps company and the way that the whole sports card community worked, which is this stuff was cheap and an afterthought and not important. And the stuff that was important was the baseball for Topps baseball. It was literally the whole hobby wasn't even sports card collecting. It was baseball card collecting. It was all about baseball fundamentally for a really long time. And with that shift, I think we're going to see more advertising. We're going to see, more partnerships, all these types of things. That's my prediction. And you creating, like in Marvel, with people who are passionate, some infrastructure for the sort of stuff. And then influencers and these brands and these, putting that out more, that combination will lead to a lot more collectors for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be, I just want to talk Marvel cards. That's all I want to do, dude. But yeah, it'll definitely help. And I still think just because of supply and supply chain issues, we are probably a year or two at least out from Upper Deck even be able to provide. But there has been things that, like Weiss was a godsend. It was really funny. It was a godsend for the Marvel card collectors. The older you go on the Facebook group, and they have a pretty decent sized Facebook group, like 4,000 or 5,000. And these collectors of 10, 20, 30 years, however long, they couldn't buy product for a short period of time. And then Weiss comes out and they just took to it like so immediately. They're enjoying it. There's been a couple of knockoff Chinese products. It's Caillou and Cayman. And they're loving it because they're cheap. They're able to rip it. They're able to get their Marvel hit, their Marvel taste. So that was fantastic. GameStop also had a fairly cheap mass-produced product. But yeah, it was funny because Weiss was terrible for the actual Weiss players because that Marvel Weiss set just was so expensive. But go ahead, Retro.
I was just going to say really quick, Marvel Weiss is the highest graded Weiss set of all time. So to me, that shows like an appetite. You know, maybe people were trying to stonk a little bit, you know, on the higher rarity cards. But to me, that says a lot, right? Because Weiss has been around for a minute with tons of popular IPs. And so for the Marvel one to be like that, I don't know. That
it
shows
is kind
like
of crazy.
Appetite. Yeah. And to Jake's point about like this stuff not being a pump and dump, I would definitely echo that. It takes a lot of work, time, energy, passion, and also like tying up capital, right? Like as a flipper or a business or whatever you want to call it, me tying up like 10, 20 grand in Bandai boxes is not the play. You know what I mean? That's a play for somebody that's like super passionate, deep down the rabbit hole. Like if it does well and there's a market for it, like could I have first mover advantage? Sure. But are there better places to be sticking my money and could I be making more money doing other things? Like absolutely. Like I'm doing this because, you know, like Swami, I love it. Like I went down a rabbit hole and it's fun, man. Like I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it. If other people, I mean, obviously, hopefully other people are passionate about it too, because I don't want to be sitting on, you know, like dead capital or whatever. But I think it's cool, man. I really genuinely do. It's organic. It's not me trying to like do some crazy stonk to the moon type thing. I just think it's cool. I think it's undervalued. And if I have to be the guy to spread that information and be able to educate people that are genuinely interested in it about it, that's cool to me. You know, that's fun to me. And that's valuable too, right? Being part of the card community. It's not always just about like what's the most optimized, you know, player. What like part of it too is just, you know, having fun, building community and yeah, sharing information. So
Yeah, it's a combination of things. You know, I mean, listen, it is fun to not only is it nice to make a lot of money because you can have more control over your life, and you know, it's not like it's not nice to make a lot of money, you know, but there's definitely an oversimplification sometimes, and there's a lot of people we want to try to make money or we want to try to do something that is also like we love and we really have a great time and we can do it with a lot of people. I do think that there are people right who understandably have a different attitude of sort of like, why do you care if other people, no one's saying this in the chat, but just as sort of a counterpoint, like, why do you care about like getting other people in it if it isn't to increase the value? And the first response obviously is like, because we want to collect with other people and share information and not be alone, right?
Yeah.
The second thing, you know, there some percentage of it is about money or about resale value or about like it's fun to be able to like buy expensive things that don't just go to zero as soon as you like buy them, and that actually could be like even like hold some value or stay the same in value. You know, there's so many cards I'd buy if I knew 100% they would never go down in value and wouldn't go up at all. You know, I would be like, yeah, that's phenomenal. Great. You know, that takes the risk out. I don't care. I'm not looking to like speculate or make money. It's just like, but it's nice to know that if I buy this like really expensive card right now, it's not going to, you know, plummet or get destroyed. And, you know, so it's a constant mishmash of things. And that's where these discussions come from. And I think, I mean, you know, I spent a lot of time on my channel early on because no one was talking about market manipulation and talking about the way these markets, you know, me and like reserved investments from Sean, I feel like we're like the two people on YouTube it felt like at the time, you know, and Swami as he came a little later, but, you know, talking about market manipulation and the dangers of sort of the mania and all these types of things, right? but it can go too far and it can be sort of like everything is evil, so it's good to know that. Like, I'm glad that people have that instinct these days and are aware and fairly concerned, but don't let that, like, take the joy away, you know? It sucks, like, and don't let that you not don't don't let that lead you to not sharing your opinions and trying to build community. Because, like, you sharing, like, "Hey, I think this is a really good deal, and I think this is great," or "I think this is undervalued," or "I think this is really cool," is, like, a net positive, particularly if everyone's doing it in, like, a respectful way and we're all educated enough to, like, make our own decisions at the end of the day and not obviously be, like, too swayed by anyone's opinion. So my take on that sort of thing.
Well, and really quick.
And
Oh, you
go ahead, man. Go ahead. I got my wife. She's like, "Get your ass to bed, fool."
Okay.
So real quick, this is the last hour that I've been on has been a complete acting game. All I want to do is take your money and sell you my Marvel cards. Okay.
Okay.
Kidding. No, I it's been kind of nice, thinking about, just having this mentality that, of just showing and having the mentality of just getting people involved. Who is that?
Is that the 101? Oh,
Wait,
you're muted.
Qui-Gon Jinn out of 10. I'm just opening mail as we talk.
Okay.
I have so much
Hell
mail.
yeah.
Here.
Is that an auto or is that just like a
I gotta show
refractor?
some mail.
Just a colored parallel. We got these two 8s. These are so
Hey.
cool.
Those are sick.
Out of 25. Yeah, these are sick. You know how much I paid for each of these? $20.
Wow.
That's a deal. That's a good deal.
And these are impossible to grade. I will tell you, I've been very engaged in this market. Impossible to grade. 8s are actually like a good grade.
This is pretty sweet. So this is 3D. This is a super thick card.
That's cool.
And Deadpool is actually like showing up 3D, like he looks like he's on a dock. It's pretty cool. Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, but I gotta go.
Are you dipping out? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Thanks for having me out. I love this conversation. Non-sport in general. Like today, I was looking at Cowboy Bebop boxes and was like, they were up for $99 and now they're like $250. I'm like, God, I'm not gonna buy these. Like, what happened? They came out with a terrible live action show, and now the box goes from $99 to $250. Anyway, good night. Have a good night. Thanks for having me on.
Later, Swam.
Catch you guys later. Oh, Denver Collecticon. Denver Collecticon.
Be there.
Chill the Denver Collecticon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be such a good time. But to your point, like,
yeah,
earlier about like the community thing, it's like if you, Swami, and I all went to a museum or something and like all experience a piece of art, it might individually like affect us, on like a profound level or something. And that's awesome. Like we can all have our own individual experience with it, but it's so much fun for us to get together afterwards and talk about like our own experience that each of us had, why it affected us profoundly, what we liked about it, or what. It's the same thing with cards. Hey, Austin Powers. So I don't know, man. Like
people are talking about it in chat.
Yeah.
It was me, guys. I'm actually I repacked it.
Oh, it's a repacked Austin Powers box.
Oh, did you hear? I'm showing it because there was like an expensive box of sports.
Oh, the Prism box that had Austin Powers packs. Yeah, that was funny. That's funny. Yeah. So
people are just talking about it in the chat.
But yeah, man, just like talking about stuff, just like sharing the information, and explain like, why do you like this? Why do I like that? That has value. Like obviously people collect in a bubble and a lot of people are private collectors and that's great too. But I don't know, the community is amazing to me. Like it's extremely rewarding and fulfilling to talk to people that are interested and willing to go deep, and I don't know. So I don't think that's shilling at all or a pump and dump or whatever. That's just genuine interest and being passionate about stuff. So
and it impacts the market. And this is the other part that I hear influencers say my opinion and what I share and the fact that I come on my channel every day and talk positively about something and that people should put money into it doesn't impact people's opinions. Also wrong. So it's sort of like both things are true. Like what you say has opinion, and the bigger and the more people listen to you and the more people view you as sort of like a guru-y expert, you know, in the extreme, or just respect your opinion, you know, in a more healthy, mature way. You know, that stuff really matters, and it really does change his minds. And the smaller the market, the more you can impact it, the more a smaller influencer can impact it. And I think that's why some of that irritation when people are like, when I talk positively about this all day, like, I don't impact the market, like no one listens, you know, it's like, it's a little bit like, that's clearly not how things work. That's why you're being paid money. That's why sponsors, even my channel, I get reach out like every week, every other week with a sponsor wanting to partner with me because they think that if I talk about their thing, a certain percentage of you guys, a certain percentage of people who watch this will buy it, you know? So, so you want to listen to people who you trust, right? And who you think care about you and don't put their own interests over yours, generally speaking, is a good thing, right? So the clearest way people do that, right, is like a pump and dump, where that's directly putting my interests over yours and then dumping the thing that I'm pumping. But another thing that can be bad is also just pumping something that you know, we're not explaining the downside or not explaining the risk, or, you know, I think that which is why I started this conversation, you know, with you know, that disclaimer, because yes, you know, that certainly if you just talk positively all the time without the risk, like there's going to be a certain percentage of that probably that leave with an overconfidence than they probably should. And a lot of people who talk positively, like when I talk to them behind the line, if they only talk positively, like they're more concerned, but it's just sort of their brand or their YouTube, or they, you know, they don't, you know, so it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I guess
tangent there.
No, you're good. I think you just you have to do the best that you can, you know, like if you do all this work, get all this information on, you know, let's say a dead TCG or something, right? And you find out what the chase cards are, you figure out the distribution, and, you know, you do your best speculation on how many or how rare like X card is, right? Where does it become pumping? By you just saying, here's the information that I found, here's my best guess.
Yep.
Here's why I think that this should be valued. Here's what the box it comes from sells for. Here's the pull rate, and because of that, you know, potentially the cards under, like, where does it come from? Or I guess you just have to judge like intent, right? And if your main intent, ooh, is that, ooh, that's fire. Where'd you get that? Was that on Popos?
Yeah, a long time ago. I actually traded Pokemon during the hype for this.
Okay.
Just
is that unlim? That's nuts, dude. That's crazy. Do you feel like is that the half foil? I prefer that one to the full foil. I like how half of his face and like the eyebrow is foiled. You got some fire. You're shilling now, shilling hard.
A little limited. This is actually real fire. Pulling this is so hard. It's so expensive.
The GT stuff, yeah.
It's the big one though. You know what this is?
This is
from this is the Lost Episodes big hit Trunks.
Okay. I haven't looked at the GT stuff at all. I've been mainly focused on just like the DBZ stuff, and then like the trophy cards. Like I just bought a Champion Zora and a Victorious and stuff like that. So I'm not super deep, but I have been kind of like picking up some regular foils of big characters, because I just feel like they're undervalued, and if you can hit like a 9, an 8, or a 9 on them, I mean, there's demand, man. Like Kai had a it was just like a Vegeta, like a regular foil from Saiyan Saga or something, and got like a $500 offer for it or something crazy. So there's demand for this stuff for sure. But yeah, like it kind of got off on but like where do you see like the line being drawn between like your intention is to pump and your intention is just to educate based on the best information that you have, that you know, based on the work that you've put in and the digging that you've done, and you know
So
what
I
I'm
think,
saying?
I mean, obviously, like there are people who just care more about other people. There are some people who care more about other people than other people. Like it's, you know, and now that can be a broad thing, and we can care in a number of different ways. We get into a whole discussion about what it means to care and help people and altruism and blah 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 blah. Pretty deep down the rabbit hole there, but um, so where do I draw the line for me personally? So I think that part of what I wanted to set up my channel in a way that my interests were aligned with the interests of the watchers, because the best way to avoid anything bad happening, or what we'd call like a moral hazard, or some sort of negative thing happening, is actually to set up your business or to design your channel or whatever, so that whatever it is you are telling people, you have incentive to tell. Okay. And so you have incentive to tell the truth. You don't have an incentive to lie. So if I have an incentive to lie, like if I lie, I'm going to make more money, or if I lie, I'm going to grow my channel bigger. If I like, when you have those incentives, like even if you're a very moral person, you can ignore those incentives and you can push them off because you care more about not hurting others. You care more about people's well-being, like as an individual, right? Like, of course. But so in the beginning, the design of my channel was like, I'm the only one talking about this who's not running a business. So I'm the only one who's going to tell you the truth. You know, it's like that sort of thing of like, or be able to really tell you the truth, because everyone else is going to tell you that the Pokemon market's doing great and that you should keep buying into this mania because they're actively selling into it. And I'm not. I'm a collector at heart. I'm planning on holding these things for a really long time. And I didn't want to sell anything, particularly during that window at all initially. Then prices got so extreme that I had to sell a huge amount, because financially, like, it just would have been such a huge mistake that I just had to do it. But that's where the channel started, because I was like, well, all these other channels that I really enjoy, I don't need to name names, but they all are like doing this full time or actively constantly selling. And yet they're telling people that it's a good investment as they're selling to them, which to me inherently sends a pretty strange message, where you're like, well, how do I know I can trust you? How do I know I can trust your sort of market analysis if you have such an incentive for this stuff to go up? Now, I think that's healthy skepticism to some degree. You should have that skepticism of me too. I have that skepticism of myself. I think I might be overly hopeful and optimistic because I just really want this stuff because I really like it. Like we all have to be aware of sort of our own biases and talk those out. And then some people will be more truthful with them, you know, than others. Hopefully I've demonstrated in 2.5 years that I try hard to you know, find that balance. But there's no like hard and fast rule. Like me showing the Superman and doing this and sharing my opinions more, which I'm planning on doing more in the future, just being more transparent with sort of like how I really feel about things, rather than like being so concerned about everyone all the time, which is like how I, you know, used to feel. I think it's a good step for the channel generally. I think people will get more value and use from it, but there's also a higher risk that I could be very wrong about things and I can guide people in the wrong direction. And so people just need to, who are listening, just need to understand that, you know, that when you're listening to me or anyone, we can be very wrong about things and we can have like very, very strong blinders on, you know?
So when you say like you worry about like a potential bias just because you are really into it and you know you want other people to be into it as well, like how do you go about gaining perspective or like taking a step back to kind of like get an outsider, you know, perspective or point of view? Because when you're so engaged 24/7 and you're talking to people that are like so engaged and so obsessed with the card market, Pokemon specifically, how do you step back and yeah, just regain balance, I guess?
I'm just constantly trying to keep myself in check. I mean, do I want this card to be $1 million? That would be phenomenal, because not only would I feel like an absolute genius because I own I probably own like 12 of like the 30 booster boxes in the world, or 40 booster boxes in the world where this card is in it. But like, I'll feel really smart, which will make me feel good about myself, which you should be very careful with ego. Ego's not the best thing in life to go down that rabbit hole, but I have, we all have them. So I'll feel excited or good. And then I'll be able to sell some, and I'll have a lot of money, and then I'll be able to like buy a bunch of other cool stuff. So because I want it, I want it, right? Or talk about the Pokemon or whatever, I have to be aware of that desire for it to go up for those sort of selfish reasons. And then I need to try and factor that in my market analysis, right? So I'm going to be I need to probably walk back some of the bullishness, or because I really want it to succeed. And that's why I say a lot, like, I hope, right? And I try and separate sort of my hopes and my beliefs and opinions based on like supply and demand fundamentals and actual like statistics and actual patterns we've seen. And you do your best to try and like separate those things. And just like you really hope that like those Bandai DBZ cards become extremely expensive, because not only will you be like this genius who bought a huge amount of them and you'll feel amazing about yourself, which will feel great, but like you're going to make a lot of money, which would feel really great and be able to fuel other parts of your collection. It doesn't mean that you're not being like very careful, not overstating what you think those actually could do, not warning people, trying to be as balanced as possible. That's the best you can do. Is just understand that, and then try to find that middle ground. And anyone who comes out, in my opinion, with like really extreme sort of like, we can't talk at all about anything, or money or cards or whatever, or like none of that matters and no one has any impact and everyone's just an adult and should make their own decision. Like, I reject both of those extremes for some sort of middle ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, I agree with you about the ego thing. I remember a long time ago you talked about Hisoka and how he had like graded out a lot of like the Cardos stuff and the Topsun stuff, and
yeah,
like I feel like that would be kind of cool to like be that guy of something or whatever, but it's not like so that I can sit and put myself on a pedestal. It's more so like I found something that I thought was really cool, and it's awesome that like all these other people thought it was really cool too, and I was right at predicting the demand. Obviously, like the money is amazing, if that comes or whatever, but just the idea that like you could even find something that somebody else hadn't seen, because you can't really do that in Pokemon. You know what I mean? Like Pokemon is so optimized, and like you were saying earlier, like it'd probably be pretty hard for you to show a card right now that like no one had seen before. You can do that with these dead TCGC. Like, I mean, I've been buying Score for the past couple of months, and I haven't looked into the GT stuff really, but like I had no idea what that card was. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. And I was listening to the Zoom call back earlier yesterday, and I heard you talking about PSA and kind of saying that like these companies are our partners, and I'm interested to hear like, do you think now that PSA and you were saying even at the national, CGC was talking about making a genuine effort to get more information on just be more accurate on grading Yu-Gi-Oh cards and variations and all those different types of things? Like, do you see these companies continuing to do that move forward? And like in 5 years from now, do you think that these things that there's less information about, do you think that companies like PSA and CGC will play a big role in spreading the information or creating a legitimacy around this stuff that there isn't as much information around?
Yep, I do. And I think that the grading card companies they'll write articles, they'll put it out there more. You'll see it like PWCC Heritage, like you're going to see it in the auctions more. And when people see something in a slab, all of a sudden it becomes collectible and there's a lot more of a market for something usually. Legitimizes it. It makes it feel like it's a legitimate collectible in this market to some people, or to a certain degree of people. I've seen it happen time and time again with things. I mean, we've seen it happen in Pokemon. Talk about like great examples are The best example I think of this in Pokemon, to bring it back to Pokemon for a second, is the playing cards. Perfect example of a worthless, basically worthless item in a Mania that now that they graded it and that all of them are grading like 9.5s and 10s, and it wasn't worthless before, but let's say it was $200, cards, right? People turn $200 to $20,000 by grading complete decks and selling them, just because the grading card companies, Beckett, agreed to grade them, and now people started seeing them in these graded in the Beckett, and made them seem better. They saw it like black labels and really good grades, and they were like, "Oh, that's valuable," and they paid a lot for it, and people made out crazy money. And I've said the similar things for you with like your Bandai DBZ, for people with like the Mario stuff that like Kai, I think, was showing, that we've talked about. It's like you get those in slabs, you get those in front of people, people start asking questions, people start engaging, people want them. So that's how you build markets. And in Pokemon, they knew what they were doing. Some of these influencers and guys who were early knew what they were doing and were intentional in building the Pokemon market the way that it is now. So
does that make you do you think, like, without Gary, like you were saying, do you think without Gary doing what he did in the way that he did it, do you think things would be, I mean, obviously it's speculation, but does that make you like more or like less confident? Like, do you feel like that's a shaky foundation, or do you just feel like it's something that if he didn't do it, somebody else would have done it?
Yeah, obviously I have no idea. It's a good question. And it's something I think about a lot, is like, how much impact do individuals have? I mean, Gary is someone who he sold that Charizard to Logan, which gave Logan the incentive to then talk about Pokemon and push Pokemon up and make Pokemon valuable, and got Logan interested in creating partnering with like Liquid Marketplace and probably all the other projects that he's partnering on in the space. And it's just going to be more and more involved in cards. The more he ties his brand to it, the more then he will continue to do it, because he's put time and effort, which will continue, he'll be a funnel for people joining this hobby probably for the foreseeable future, for a long time, in various ways. And would someone else have sold him the Charizard? Maybe, right? Who knows? Eventually, would he have gotten it? Probably, so in that sense, did it need to be Gary? Maybe not, but Gary's always, I think, thinking strategically. I should bring Gary back on. It's been a while since Gary and I have talked. I actually thought it would be fun to bring Gary on and then do a call-in show with him. I thought it would be fun, because I bet people would love to like pick his brain and come on camera and actually ask him specific questions. So I'm going to do that. But Gary, back in the day when no one was doing this and no one was collecting, he was the one grading. He was the one talking to PSA, getting them to do it. And he and Birdman were the ones like going around trying to sell them, trying to get people excited, hyped up about the stuff. And without them doing that, who knows? I have no idea. Were there some other people doing it during those years too? Maybe. Obviously you have people like Charlie and SM Pratt, who were fairly public, who have been around for 15 years, a really long time, or 14 years or whatever it's been. Who also built out, Charlie has done not so much on the social media side, but has tons of relationships and built out tons of partnerships with all sorts of people, over his time, and helped really build the hobby. And someone like Scott Pratt, with people like, did DJ Gigabyte, building out E4, just as Swami said, building out that infrastructure so that when people come to the hobby, they stay, because they make friendships, they build community. Coming to a channel like this, being able to hang out, talk, joining our Patreon and our Discord, right? Like that stuff provides a lot more value, so that you then, you friendships, you have interesting conversations that make you think, it rather than like, I buy this card and then I don't know what it is, and I put it in a box and I think it looks good, which is still cool, but it's like, it adds all this other stuff and all this other enjoyment. So it was the effort of a lot of people, and then obviously the Pokemon card company doing a good job and continuing to steer the ship, and
It's interesting too that, I mean, don't get me wrong, Bulbapedia is a great resource, but it's interesting to me at least as far as I know, like you can't go to Pokemon.com and see like complete set lists with like high res scans of every single card. To me, like that's a huge, yeah, that's a misstep or a missed opportunity or whatever you want to call it, and doesn't necessarily is Pokemon as a business incentivized to do that because does information on vintage cards make them sell more modern product? Maybe not, but it's just interesting to me that I have to go to a third party website to get information on, you know, to get a set list for even Sword and Shield block sets, that I have to go to like a third party website instead of Pokemon directly. Um, and this is more niche, but when I was doing the Bandai stuff and I couldn't find information on certain things, I literally emailed Bandai, and then I emailed Bandai Japan and like translated my messages into Japanese, like, you know, and they basically told me like, we don't have any information on this stuff anymore. And even like E4 is somewhat like, there's great information on there, but it's like, it's really archaic. It's just crazy. It's 2022 and it shouldn't be this difficult. But now I think moving forward, I think these companies have incentive because there is all this like reinvigorated demand that they might, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that transparency and like providing that information and knowledge that would be so easy for Pokemon to do. It's kind of a surprise to me that they haven't done stuff like that, you know. So I don't know. You're on mute, by the way.
Oh, sorry, I'm with you.
You're good. You're good.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just having a blast. I think for me, it's just like I have so many goals. I just need to be patient. I was talking about this, I think, yesterday now, because it's a new day here where I am on the East Coast. But during the office hour, just a little bit of the struggle I'm having because there's so many things I'm interested in, and I just don't have the money. And kind of dealing with like, how do I plan for that? How do I be patient? You know, and really feeling that for the first time in a while. And feeling sort of like, should I sell some things to some Pokemon specifically would be probably what I would sell to fund some of these other collectibles that I'm interested in, or should I just sort of be patient and wait and maybe risk a lot of this stuff being bought up by someone else? You know, it's what a lot of people I think can probably relate to here. You know, there's a lot of constant decision making. It's why it's so fun. You know, the buying and the selling and the figuring out what to do. It's all part of the game, part of the jigsaw puzzle. You know.
And are you feeling that way because you see more value in these other things and you want to like move money over, or is it that you're just currently more interested in these other things, or like what's your thinking?
So I'm not selling anything that I don't have like a double in Pokemon. So part of it is like I have doubles of this stuff or triples or sometimes even more in Pokemon, where in Star Wars I have none yet or whatever, or in Superman or Batman, or, you know, I'm still getting my first thing, or, you know, Disney or Marvel. So it's definitely from a collector's perspective, but it's also from I do see maybe in some cases more upside. Or at least if I have 3 of this one item, maybe I sell one and I keep the other 2, and then I can put it in this other stuff. And then maybe I'm a little bit, you know, I go half and half rather than going full one way or the other. I sort of hedge my bet and still have cool stuff on both. You know, it's that sort of thing. What I don't want to happen is like a lot of these one of ones or these things that I really like or rare stuff, like be bought by someone and then just disappear forever. Like where it gets so popular, like the PMGs, and then it's just gone. Because me paying $40,000 or $30,000 for one of these PMGs, like I just need to be so much richer than I am to ever do something like that. Because I just don't like it that much. But for $500, I like it that much, you know. So it's like that. That's where my mind goes.
Okay, so it's more collector than like, and what about the museum? Like, do you buy things with like the museum in mind, or I know you're saying you just set lofty goals, but that can maybe be like overwhelming as well too. Like if you feel maybe like a goal isn't
Yeah.
attainable or it stresses you out. So like how do you deal with that? If you get into something, you're really having a good time, you're really enjoying it, but it's it's hard to get a hold of. It might be expensive. Like do you feel FOMO or like how do you?
Well, I never get too far from none of this stuff matters at all.
Okay.
To be
Heard
completely
it
blunt.
here, folks. You heard it
Yeah,
here
and
first.
like it's fun. Like if you're not having fun, what are you doing?
Mhm.
So it's because it's just pieces of cardboard and it's stuff that doesn't matter. And not to get too extensive, but like we're all gonna die someday. Legitimately, the experiences you have, the memories, being able to look at the cards, like it's all very, very enjoyable. But it's also like I don't take any of it too seriously, I think. It's why I get such a kick out of people who, maybe that's not quite the right word, but like, it's like no one needs to have an ego about this stuff. Like, just enjoy where you're at, enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy setting really lofty goals and then trying to stress out about how to reach them, like I do, fantastic, because you're like an intense person like me, and if that sucks, then don't do that at all. Like, and obviously part of what's hard is self-control. And self-control is really a difficult thing in life, right? Having discipline and self-control. And I struggle with, I do plenty of things that I and regret or whatever later, from just like eating a cheeseburger and fries, that's my main one, right? Like food's one of the main ones. So it's usually not major things, but certainly small things like that. So I think, I made the addiction video on the channel. I think that's important to bring up in this sort of context of like, are you having fun? Are you spending within your means? Is this stressing you out? If you have these really ambitious goals that are going to cost you a ton of money over time, how are you doing it? How are you going to achieve that in a way that it's not an addiction and that it doesn't put you in a bad situation or spot, and that you're comfortable with like the value going way down and people losing interest. And I think, when your ego gets caught up in it, I do worry sometimes for people that like, particularly influencers. It's like I've had these discussions with big influencers before. It's like, who am I if I sell this? It's like their whole persona or status in the hobby has to do with their collection or what they have. And that's why that's why they think people talk to them, this or that. I hope we've been able to create a community where we don't give a crap about what someone owns. And it's more like we love talking about it, right? It's free. You and I sitting here for 4 hours or whatever and just saying whatever, it doesn't matter what type of collection we have. It's a sharing of knowledge, and we're interested in each other's sort of like knowledge and opinions on things. And I think that stuff's really great. And that stuff isn't going to put you in debt.
Do you feel any pressure at all, like being, a bigger, especially in like the niche market space? Like, do you feel any pressure at all sometimes that like maybe you, like if you did sell something or whatever, like if you come under criticism or what, like, do you feel like people might be like overly critical in that sense, or do you worry at all? Like if I sell this, like, do I have the same status at all, or is that not something that really affects you?
No, the only time I ever think of it is, will I be able to get this back for my collection? But it's not a like, what will other people think of me? I've never felt that way, fortunately. I also don't think that my relationships are built on my collection. I think they're built on like a shared hobby passion. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It'd be funny if I like sold like, what are the cards that I'm known for? I feel like I'm also known for a lot, like not known
Baby
for
shinies. You sold the baby shinies.
If I sold all the baby shinies, who would I be? Because
I know, right?
I would disappear from existence.
No.
You know, I I have stuff. I have a lot. The majority of what I have, I've never shown. You know, I show things for specific reasons. you know, because I think they're interesting. I want to talk about them. I feel like it's time to show them. But I'm probably known for what, like, I mean, it'd be weird for me. Like, I've thought about selling my Tropical Wind before, because I could maybe get like 45,000 for it or whatever, and with that money, I could buy a lot of other stuff. And I think like the champion stamps are like undervalued versus those. I'm buying those for like 6,000. Like, there's things that but like, I really like that card, and it's very key to my Worlds collection. And I'm not sure I feel confident that I'll ever be able to get it again at a cheaper value because there aren't that many 9s in the world. So it's there, you know, but none of it is like, what are people going to think of me? Yeah, I don't care.
So when you say it's like a key part, is that because, like you said, like you set the lofty goal, so if you feel that it's going to be really difficult for you to get it back, like you feel like, okay, well, I'm, potentially never going to complete this goal, and that really like affects me, and so that's why I'm more keen to hold on to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a goal that I want to complete. It's a goal that's important to me. It's probably one of my favorite goals within the Pokemon hobby. And if I sell the rare parts of that, I may have to pay really high amounts to get them back. And I'm not really comfortable spending that much money on these items. Like, it's already gotten so high. You know, the only cards that I'm probably going to end up spending really high on are the original Pikachu trophies. Like, I think I'll buy them someday, unless they go like to 5 million or 10 million. Like, hopefully I'll buy those someday. But everything else that's super expensive, I'm already like, I don't need. I'm over that, unless it came down a lot. There are no cards in this hobby over 40,000 other than those that I would ever consider picking up for like anywhere near their current values personally. And obviously that's a humongous amount of money, right? But like, it's
Is that because you just feel that they're overvalued because of a narrative that's been placed around them, or you just don't have interest as much in them?
I don't have as much interest, and I feel like the narratives, I feel like they're just way too high. Like, I love the snap cards. I'd like to pick them up. They're just way too expensive, in my opinion, versus other things in terms of what they are and what I can buy in other hobbies. I mean, when we start comparing to other hobbies, what I can get for that amount of money, it's like crazy,
So do you feel like there's a window at all for certain things? Like, do you feel like, let's just say for the rest of the year, do you feel like that there's a window to where like some, maybe not like too unattainable prices, but do you think, like, for instance, first edition base 9s, like that there's a shorter window on those, as far as like you're only going to be able to get them at these prices for a certain period of time, and after a certain amount of them are bought up, like that's it, they're out of here, so I'm going to try to maybe focus those more aggressively? Or are you just kind of patient and you just go with like what you like at the time, if that makes sense? Like,
So,
if something,
for
like
people out
it,
there, like,
yeah,
go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, first edition,
you go.
first edition base, like PSA 9 hollows that you're talking about. There are quite a few of them. There are quite a few of them coming up all the time. I mean, for people out there, one of the first things I'd be looking at is how often are these things coming up? And are they slowing down in how much they're coming up? Are they increasing? Are they staying about even? I don't feel like there's a tremendous rush right now. Could that change in 6 months to a year? Sure. But certainly right now, I don't think there's a tremendous rush to buy those. I think that it's a lot more like if a champion stamp or a finalist or these types of things come up, I think there's a lot more of like, this may be your best opportunity ever to buy it potentially in your lifetime. The price could also collapse on those. I have no idea, but whereas with the first edition base, 9s in particular, 10s maybe a little bit of a different story, but even with the 10s, like I just think that that those will be gettable for a long time. I mean, you can get Mickey Mantles. Like, there were a bunch of them at the show if you have the money. And that, you know, so it's like, there are just some cards that I think of as like if this goes in a private collector's hand, I will never own this card. Like maybe no matter what, like first of all, I won't even be able to find it. Because one thing that's underestimated sometimes in these markets is how are you going to find that? What if the person's not even on social media that much or doesn't know you, even if you start making posts about it? Like how are you going to find that card? You know, so the super rare stuff, the stuff that has like 6 ever printed, 2 ever printed, 3 ever printed, 1 ever printed, that's the stuff that is the most likely to just disappear forever. And even if you were willing to make an absurd value, that person may never hear it, or you know, you may never be able to track it down. Set cards, even your top set cards, and even and a lot of your trophies, that there are trophies that people are paying a lot of money for, that there are 1,000 copies, probably, you know, or more. So it's there's just not the same I think rush, particularly in this market when I don't think the market for those cards is that big. And I don't know what's going to spike it up a lot more. I mean, how many Logan Pauls are there? You know, how many of these rich guys are going to gobble them all up? Because how many people are that wealthy at our age? You know, very few. So, and I may end up being wrong about that. Like these Pikachu trophies, for example, they're I don't need to get like the 1997 ones. I'm okay getting like 1998 or something. So there are a few more that I could get, but like there are very few of those cards. And I've already like lost a few of them over the past couple of years, you know, over the last year and a half. So, and I've lost a few options of getting it. And if those could be $2 million cards in 5 years from now, like the Pokemon market could be at the same place and those cards could be 2 million. You know what I mean? Like with the same people here, and just they're now enough wealthy people that they can actually afford those. But that's a lot of money, and you're going to need some like insanely wealthy people. So, and they might not be here. They might not be in this market. Obviously, sports has that, but we don't.
So, I guess like personal like interests aside, then do you think that like, although there's more supply, like do you think that then set cards, obviously like they're not a monolith, like you know, there's nuance and everything has different fundamentals, popular Pokemon, not popular Pokemon, blah blah blah, but do you think that then set cards, because they have like more established demand, more consistent sales volume and things like that, that those are then a safer play or investment or collection piece or pickup or whatever you want to call it than something like a trophy or extremely rare promo or things like that, to where very little sales volume, or very little sales data, not quite sure how to correctly value it because it's not selling all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get what I'm getting at? Like, do you think that potentially just the popularity, because we were just talking about earlier, like the Moonbryon, right? Mm-hmm. Still 700, it's crazy, you know, but like that just goes to show like the demand for a modern set card is crazy high. So what do you think about that versus like the demand, like even how deep you have to get to even know that these trophy cards exist, let alone know how to like correctly value them?
I think they're slightly different conversations. One is about like the fear of losing a card forever. The other one is a conversation about trying to pay the best price or buying the thing that's going to like do the best over time, or like is the best speculative and investment piece. A lot of the times when I'm buying these trophies, of course, I hope they're good speculative investment pieces, but a lot of it is just about getting that card into my private collection. And because I just will have it. And then in case it goes up a ton, I won't have to pay a lot more, or I may never have another chance to buy it. But as far as like what the market's going to do and how the market's going to value these things, man, no idea. Probably accurately right now. You know, I feel like the Pokemon market is quite optimized. You know, I think that with the modern stuff, like there's going to be a lot more of those packs open. There's going to be a number of more of those just into existence. And then with PSA lowering their price to 18, there's going to be continued more and more of those graded. So supply is going to go up in both the raw and the graded. And unless demand continues to balance that, the price will come down. It's not rocket science. It doesn't need to be any more, you know, sophisticated than that. And that's true for any card. That has nothing to do with like oh, it's beautiful or it's over, who cares? Like it's supply and demand. And, demand being equal, if supply increases, theoretically it'll go down. Now these markets don't exactly work that way with comps and the fact that you have to understand the difference between like rarity and scarcity, right? So scarcity has to do with like the amount of current demand compared to the amount of like current copies available. And so if there are only a few copies available on the market at any one time, even if there are millions out in the world and there's 1,000 people who want them and there are only 7 on the market, that's relative to a lot of other cards in the hobby, that would be like an extremely scarce card. People misuse kind of like rarity versus scarcity, but it's not a rare card. It might be rare that it comes up on the market or rare that you can find one. That's a different definition of rare. So understanding scarcity, understanding these types of things is really important. If you want to speculate on cards like that, you just want to be following the amount that are being sold, the amount that are being listed on TCG Player. Are more and more being listed on TCG Player that aren't selling at the same price? That's usually a sign that it will start to come down. So the more, then usually there's some sort of inflection point where people start undercutting each other. Like that's the type of stuff that's useful. Trying to figure out like in 5 to 10 years what that's going to be versus something else is like, all right, who the hell knows? But not understanding the demand concern, the supply concerns of something like that is to your detriment versus something else in the hobby where the supply might already be mostly out on the market or out in collectors' hands.
Okay. Yeah. I think one thing I will say is like even just being into score for like a little bit, the demand for these like judge promos and these like even champion drill being like, stupid expensive in such a small hobby that's like somewhat free from narratives, right? And people pushing the idea that like trophy cards should be valuable. The fact that those cards are so valuable already, could potentially speak to just the general interest, I guess, towards trophy cards in other hobbies as well. Yeah, I just worry sometimes about the niche stuff, like where it's all gonna go. It's definitely more risky, but like you said, and especially like there is stuff in Pokemon, for instance, that like you talked about it being undervalued. Of how are you even going to find that card? I feel like most collectors, especially Pokemon collectors, don't really have to deal with that outside of like, maybe a few really low pop PSA 10s or trophies or promos or whatever. But if you want to go right now and buy a Moonbreon, you can buy it. Like you can go right now on eBay or TCG Player or wherever, Discord, and you can probably find the card that you're looking for. Now, whether it's going to be listed at a price that you want to pay or not, like that's a whole different story. But in a lot of these other hobbies, you could want a card and it doesn't matter how much money you have, like you're not going to find it. Like the card's just not up for sale, you know what I mean? And if a version is up for sale, maybe it has a crease or something like that. And then maybe that creates its own form of FOMO. Like, it's tough. It's tough to gauge, where all that's going to go. But like I said, I do think it's interesting that in these other hobbies, trophies are valued, without any sort of narrative or any pushing that on people or whatever. People just know that they're rare. They know the distribution and they value it, for what it is. So.
Yeah, and that's in a hobby where like the set cards are actually quite a bit rarer than anything in Pokemon. So, it's the reason why, trophy cards, some trophy cards, particularly the ones, and it's very easy to say, but the ones that, things like the World's promos, like the ones that have done really well over the last like 6 months overall, and people are moving to them, right? It's because people are looking for like fairly affordable rare things. And they are looking for shelter. They're looking for exclusivity. They're looking for an item that they can put in their collection that not every single person around them has. That's a little bit of a grail. It makes their collection special, these types of things. And yeah, the more people are aware of them, the more people want them. I have zero doubt that there's going to be huge demand for all this stuff. I do think that some are way overvalued and some are still undervalued. The ones that are undervalued are the ones that have the best stories and the best rarity. Like, buy the things that are the most historic. I actually think art is overrated. I'm going to throw something that's going to, some people are going to disagree with. I think that people overvalue in some cases the aesthetics and the art. And that's a short-term thing. And then in the long run, people care a lot more about the history and the reason why the card was released and the importance of it, and the rarity. And I think that has been proven out, really, and I think it'll continue to be proven out over time. And usually the modern flashy thing where it's about art, like those things are not going to perform well, in my opinion, in the long run. And where people really like the as soon as like the influencers move on to the next thing, I think those cards are really going to struggle, because there's always going to be cooler and cooler art. Go buy Dragon Ball Super. Dragon Ball Super, all those cards are insane. They're insane looking.
So let me ask you this: if Radar's TMB was a Pikachu instead of an Exeggutor, do you think it would have sold for the same price if it had the same exact fundamentals?
No, it would have been worth way more because it's Pikachu.
Yeah.
But that's not the art. I would
Okay.
say that, yeah, because I think people overvalue art. Now, Pokemon, no, I don't think people overvalue Pokemon. Pokemon are extremely important, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we see that in every sport. Like the characters, the IP, the connection that people have to certain characters over other characters is like so much of what these hobbies are about. Maybe less so in Pokemon than some of these other. It's more extreme in Marvel and sports because you have like your starting five and then you just like the bench. And I feel like Marvel kind of that too to some degree. It's like you have your cards that sell for like $50,000, right? Your Spider-Man, and then you have like, I don't even know, like a name that nobody knows, like just some random character from something that's like, $50, right?
Yeah.
Pokemon isn't that bad. Like if you could have a gold star Weedle and it would still be like a few hundred bucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that is one thing I will say about Pokemon versus sports is kind of like you said, like outside of the top five, and you can even get like a low serialized rarity, like an out of 10, but if the player is someone like no one cares about, it doesn't matter. It could be like a $10 card, And so whereas with Pokemon, it could be a hollow magneton and it's still going to have it might not have like the same value relative to like the Charizard or whatever, but like it's more so than sports, the disparity between the price based on like the Pokemon is a lot closer together. And I would say that there's more people that are interested in like a wide range of Pokemon, whereas like in sports, everyone's going for the same. Obviously, like you have people that want to complete sets or are into a specific player because they know them from high school or watched them play in college or whatever, but it's not the same as
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not the same as being like, well, I'm a Lugia collector, but I also have like this Blossom because I really like the art on it. You know what I mean?
And in Pokemon, gotta catch them all, right? In sports, like these players are bench no-namers who don't even have stats, so you can barely look up online, right? Like who don't get any airtime, who never get interviewed, right? So part of that is just in the design of how these things work. So I think in Pokemon, that is why like the lesser like key characters, but in Gold Star or in Alt Art or in Rainbow or in whatever the secret rare thing key thing is still going to have like much better value than in sports. Like in sports, you can buy like a 101 for $20, $30 of some garbage player, right? Of some no-name player. You could buy a rookie 101 probably for $30, $40 if you want on eBay right now. That would not happen in something like this type of hobby. Very different. But there's still obviously quite a difference between Charizard sales and key. Now, do I think I do think that Gen 1's overvalued. If Pokemon succeeds in the long run. But in new sets, not in the base set. Not base set, if anything, base set first edition, if anything, is undervalued compared to plenty of the hobby. I mean, I'd much rather be buying base set PSA 9 first edition holos than like alt arts. I can tell you that much in terms of value. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's nuts. And those 9s are so much rarer than the 10s. Like to get a 9 base set first edition is going to end up being much rarer than to get a 9 in these modern cards. Like it's not even close. So whatever. But so I thought one thing that could be nice to end off on is if we want to answer some questions from chat. I was thinking, are you up for that?
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a
Absolutely.
good talk.
Dude, I love talking to you. You want to go for like 30-ish more minutes?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right.
That sounds good.
So we're going to do 30 more minutes. So if you guys want to ask your questions, I know some questions have been asked, and I'll go back and grab some.
Really quick, I wanted to ask you a question. I just remembered this. Do you think that so do you think, because before, I mean, obviously, like before the boom, even like some key Pokemon in high rarity were, $20, $40, $60, whatever. But do you think post boom, some of the less popular Pokemon seeing price appreciation, do you think that's just because there's more people overall, or do you think that that's because not only is there more people, but new people coming in are less affected by the narratives that were pre-existing in the Pokemon hobby? So they're coming in with like a fresh take. And if they see a card or a generation that they like and see as undervalued, but haven't been listening to the Garys and the SM Pratts of the world that are just like base set, Watsy, like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, what do you think about that?
I think it's interesting. I really don't know. Yeah, I mean, so you feel that that in this environment there are cards that are doing better now than they would have a few years ago in terms of like less key Pokemon on a percentage basis than compared to the Charizard? Because I haven't necessarily seen that, but that's interesting.
Not necessarily like percentage wise, but just like that they were so worthless before and maybe not even like worth grading, and now like hold, pretty solid value. You know what I mean?
But I think the percentage is the same. So for example, the Charizard is worth 200. It would have been worth 50 back then. So it's, the $4 Rainbow Rare that is now 20, or the Alt Art or whatever that's now 20. I think it's the same probably percentage difference, which shows it's the same. I think in Pokemon, there's a lot more set collectors than in sports. There's definitely set collectors in sports. There's a lot more set collectors, and there's a lot more, not even whole set collectors, but just want to collect all the alt arts from one set or all of the whatevers from one set. And I think that, and I think just the whole discussion we had before, that I don't think I think people like these Pokemon a lot better than they like the 6th guy on a bench on a team they don't even follow. Yeah, it's like I'm gonna pick a random baseball team that I don't even follow, and I'm gonna get like a guy that never plays. Sweet, like,
Yeah.
like, dude, I have like a 1 of 1, like, gold super fracture of this this guy in like the Pirates, like who never plays. He was like,
yeah.
It was sweet, dude. Like,
yeah, my homies,
cool.
My homies always clown on me because I like, it's not like my favorite Pokemon or whatever, but like I'll see a cool like fortress art. Like I really like the Split Earth fortress a lot, like the sky. I just think it's cool, and my friends are like, "Fortress is such a bag." And I'm like, maybe it is, but I don't know, man. It's cool. It's cool, but
yeah. And in sports, there's been a change over time with, like you can go like at the National, you'll see like there are tons of like set collectors from like the Junk Wax era and set collectors from, earlier. But as soon as they put in like the serialized stuff, the rare stuff, it just became, Pokemon to a lesser extent that's happening too. Like it's obviously not nearly as crazy in Pokemon. It's way easier to pull a complete set in Pokemon than it would ever be to pull any of these modern, like literally impossible to do with all the numbered stuff. But it's still very difficult with all the alt arts. And you're seeing people, right? I'm just going to collect the alt arts, or I'm going to skip this entire set, or, in response to that as well. So,
you seen any good questions?
yeah, we can start taking questions, guys. Let's see. Let's see. Here's a question. Does having serialized cards make everything else in those sets essentially bulk for long-term speculation?
What do you think?
I can answer first if you'd like. So it all depends on the amount of the set that's printed versus the demand. It all goes to supply and demand. So, for example, with some of these Marvel sets that were printed and some of these, Star Wars sets, if there's only 2,500 boxes and there's actually only of the base cards, a few thousand of each or whatever, that's way less than the number of alt arts in the world, right? Of each of the alt arts. So it's all relative to the amount that's printed. It doesn't mean that it's going to be worthless. It does. I do think it really differentiates it even more in some ways. And so the serialized stuff has to be that much more valuable, and there has to be that much more people interested in order for the non-serialized stuff to move at all. But I mean, we look at Pokemon, like how much are those alt arts and rainbow rares and all that stuff, and the regular V's going to need to be worth in order for like a non-hollow, non-reverse hollow common card from Evolving Skies to be like $5, right? Like if that card is $5, we are like 100 millionaires, like everyone, you know what I mean? Like when you think about like the amount of money that will be in those sets, if that card is worth $5 and how expensive the high end needs to be. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
I agree. I was just gonna say, like, kind of go into the Marvel stuff. So there's a set 2017 Fleer Ultra Spider-Man. It had PMGs in it, which are serialized, but some of the inserts in that set that were kind of like talked about a little less or overlooked, like the Hollow Blast specifically, like Jake said, like because the overall printing of the set was so low, even though the cards aren't hard numbered, based on the pull rates, the Hollow Blasts are actually rarer than some of the PMGs that are serialized. Now that's going to take a little more like sleuthing and like looking at the pull rates and things like that to understand, because it doesn't just have like a number stamped on it, but other inserts that given that if the supply is limited or whatever, other inserts could actually be rarer than the serialized cards. Whether that gives them more value or whatever, who knows, but it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and obviously in sports, like base set, key rookies from, less so now, but they're coming back a little, but like they have value certainly, and some of them had crazy huge value during the boom. And right now in Sapphire Star Wars, there are base cards that are worth over $100.
Wow.
In Sapphire.
Okay, how much is it to break a box?
$1,000. Probably 800, 900. Yeah, the expected value isn't that bad on those boxes if you can actually sell all of the cards, but it's gonna collapse.
Yeah,
the market for that box will collapse. The singles market will collapse, and then the booster boxes will fall a little. But the booster boxes probably will settle in not too much lower than they are, and just the singles will collapse, in my view, if I had to guess.
Do you think that
market for a while?
Do you think people are putting a lot of this Star Wars in SGC because the turnaround time is quick, or do you think they're okay?
Turnaround time, and before the 18, the prices were like fairly comparable. I think it was like 30, maybe it was 40 for SGC. 30, I think it was 30 for SGC.
Yeah, and that's quick turnaround at the 30 tier. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also SGC grades really easy a lot of the time. So you can get a lot of like 10s, 9.5s, and 9s on cards that like might get like 7s and 8s on PSA. So,
yeah, be careful buying SGC Pokemon, folks.
Yeah. And then sometimes SGC is really good value. Like I do buy some SGCs because the cards look really good. So it's it's a mix. They can't go higher than 10. So some actual 10s are 10s. Like Fortnite cards thoughts.
I mean, it's cheap. If you like Fortnite, it's cheap to break a box. I want to say Series 3 is probably like 75, maybe $80, you know, and that's at like an LGS or something like that.
Mhm.
The one thing I will say, I did open a couple boxes, and it's really hard to get them in good condition out of the pack. Like they get all sorts of lips and fraying and things like that, and then the surfaces are a little bit sticky. So trying to get those in 10 could potentially, you know, provide chase. But as far as like investing or specking, it's not something that I've gone super deep on, just because I don't have like a huge attachment to it. So
Yeah, not my thing. Not something that I follow. I didn't play Fortnite. I don't have a connection to it. It's just not my market. So I'm just not gonna have like a good instinct on it. I only collect and speculate on things that I like have a real strong interest, like personal interest in. What is your personal favorite alt artwork? You have a favorite?
I really like the Slow King. I like the Galarian Slow King a lot. I think that one's pretty cool.
I think the new Giratina looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that art's crazy. But I really like the Tyranitar and the Dragonite, but it's also because I really like those Pokemon.
I feel like the Dragonite V doesn't really get talked about a whole lot. I feel like that's kind of a sleeper, but that is a good art. That is a good art.
Yeah, it's a great looking card with a great Pokemon. Who was hating on that Pokemon? Weren't you in a live stream?
Oh, dude, yeah. Well, I was trying to. Josh was just saying that like people weren't.
Josh.
Yeah, he was like, no one wants Dragon. I was like, dude, are you kidding
Dude,
me? He's like, people only
get out of here.
people only want Charizard. And I was like, dude, come on, man, come
Get
on.
out of here.
Yeah.
Man, these adult channels tonight
I
are
know. It's so weird too. Like, wouldn't you like go target like some crypto stream or something, or some stock market stream that's got like thousands and thousands of people? Like, you're in here trolling some Pokemon.
This is where all the money is. This is where all the money is, I guess.
It's just weird.
You think the Charizard PSA 10 first edition will continue to come down in value? Will it continue to come down? Tell me.
You know, absolute financial advice. I mean, it could, I guess. Like I don't know enough about. I don't follow like that kind of stuff enough to really say one way or the other. I mean, it's whatever somebody's willing to pay for it, right? At the end of the day, like just because one person's willing to pay 500 and then the next person's willing to pay 250 or whatever, who knows? But
my instinct is it depends on how many come up for sale. So the way that I try to think about this stuff is I watch how many are selling and then what is the trend with the selling. I think that if only like one or two come out over the next few years, a year, I would imagine it'll stabilize and you might even see one tick back up a little. I think if you're seeing like 4 or 5 a year, it'll keep coming down.
yeah, well, and it signals too, like with a card like that, if like you said, if 4 or 5 are up for sale, it signals to the other people that other people are willing to sell. Versus if there's one on the market, it's like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about my investment or asset or whatever you want to call it. I don't have to worry about people dumping it, I guess, as much. So
Charvy Shilling for user page 22.
Dude, I
Charvy
actually I actually bought the Japanese 10 off of him. I wanted it so bad, and he just kept buying every single one that came up for sale, and I was like, dude, you're killing me. So finally I got one off of him. So
I was very heavy into Expedition PSA 10 back in the day, and I was buying like multiple copies of each one. To the point where I had like 9 copies of some of them, just like insane at the height. Yeah.
damn.
And I wasn't able to get a single Mew. And the reason why I wasn't able to get a single Mew is Gem Mint Zach he was buying them all. Everyone that came up was targeting that specific card. So it's hilarious. Like when one person buys like a bunch of one and not the others, because it totally like shifts the availability and amount that you can get, which just goes to show how much one person can impact a market and completely shift and change a market.
Absolutely.
with this stuff. There's just not a lot of it. Question: in an alternate universe, what IP would you like to see be as successful as Pokemon is? Which one do you choose?
I like Dragon Ball Z a lot. I really do.
Dragon Ball Z is sick. I'm gonna go Lord of the Rings because it'd be sick if they did.
Hey.
We don't talk nearly enough about it because there isn't any that great Lord of the Rings. Like I have quite a bit of the LOTR and the Middle Earth, and I like it, but I'm hoping that they're going to come out with some sick modern stuff. They have like Topps does like a signature. They're like signed cards. I don't like them right now.
You should bring do you have like a good amount of Middle Earth sealed? You should bring a box to Denver. That'd be fun to crack.
Yeah, I can bring some. I was thinking of bringing some fun stuff to Denver for us all to crack. I'm also going to bring some stuff to sell that if people want to get crazy, they can buy it from me. I'm not going to be this completely for free, but stuff like that I can definitely just gift to people to open for fun.
Please don't bring any Unseen Forces packs because I'll make some bad decisions. Please don't do that to me.
Dan is always bringing his like $600 packs, and then when we're all drunk at the worst moment, is like, yeah.
He just pulls them out. He's like, hey.
Nick, old school, you want to open some of these?
Oh my god, man. That's great. I mean, he already did pull a Charizard, so watch out for those Dan heavy packs. Probably not another Charizard in there.
I would love for Topps to do like a Galaxy set of Lord of the Rings, with like
actual art.
Yeah, just a sick creative art. It's be expensive because most of the arts in Galaxy have already been around. You probably know. A lot of people probably know. Like they didn't have to like pay a bunch of artists to like make brand new art. There are some that are brand new, but it's expensive. And the question is, how much would it sell? How much could they actually make? Is it profitable for them? All these types of things. Let's see. I'm selling all my trophy cards to buy SD Zards. Thoughts?
What's an SD Zard? Shining Darkness?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure. What is SD Zard? SD.
Are you talking about Shining Darkness, Chevals? That's the only SD I can think of.
Let us know.
Oh, special delivery. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
They're definitely not going to make more of those. I've heard that they don't reprint those. That's just like what I've heard.
Yeah. They don't reprint ETBs either, from what I've heard. Never. They've never done it.
Buy everything all the time.
What do you care about stuff like that? Do you care about special delivery Bidoof for special? It doesn't do anything for you.
I signed up for it. If I got a free one, I would have just sold it immediately and then used that money.
Really?
Something else. Oh yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't hold any sort of like attachment for a collection piece at all, really?
Not for the price.
Okay.
Yeah. What are they selling for? Like a few thousand already? 1,000?
Are they?
Let's see. Let's take a look.
Holy guacamole, dude! Are you serious?
And do people even have them yet, or are they just like not in hand, but like coming? Let's see. I'm gonna guess before we look. I'm gonna guess $2,000.
$350.
Ooh, I was way off.
$350.
Oh, that's a buy, dude. Buy them all day. That's easy buy.
I don't know, man. It's kind of undervalued because today the special delivery Charizard $350, special delivery Bidoof $265 and $12 shipping. So seems like the Charizard might be a little undervalued there. I don't know.
Oh my god! Buy.
Oh man.
Yeah, you can buy that all the way up, dude. Buy that all the way up to what I say, 3,000.
2,000. Yeah.
I would buy them all until it hits 3K. That would be my strategy.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, I guess it's a risk or whatever if you don't think it's gonna grade a 10. But if I got it and I thought it was gonna grade a 10, I'd express that all day long. I mean, $350 though for a card that you had to spend $20 to get is It's a good
If you
flip.
could figure out how the Beckett website works, maybe you could even send one in there and get go for the black label.
Black label. Yeah. Dude, I mean, I don't want to go down a whole other tangent, but like, how generally, like, are your thoughts on like perfects and black labels? Do you find it kind of silly, or like the extreme premium?
Some value, just not the amount of premium it gets.
Yeah.
Like the more you start like having grades, the more you're like, we're already like 10s are, every 9 could be an 8 or a 10, to some degree. When you start going to like 9.5 versus a 10 versus a perfect 10, we're talking like the slightest variations in the world. I have some black labels that are not perfectly centered to my eye, so I don't know. It's you'd think with like black labels, like if they really did black labels extremely well and every black label I looked at was actually perfect, like it looked really perfect, at least to my eye, then I would care more. But the fact that I've seen plenty of black labels that like are slightly off center, are slightly have like even a little bit of data whitening, it's like, how does that get a black label? How does that get actual 10s? It'd be one thing if it got 9.5s, but to get actual 10s, crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing, like, the condition rarity, but like you said, it can just be like a coin flip too between like, the perfect and the pristine 10 or whatever. It's negligible as far as the difference in the card, and the price difference is just, it's just nuts. So
I am not. Are you going?
I kind of want to. I know like DNA and Basic and a few other people are going, but I don't know. It might be a little too much to swing on short notice. I got to finish school out strong here. I'm actually doing summer quarter too, so I got stuff going on.
Would you try and get the great curator on? I actually reached out to him this week.
That would be good. That would be a good one.
Yeah, who he is, but yeah, just because he's been getting into like Star Wars and talking about the pop culture stuff, I'm kind of interested in talking to him.
Have you ever talked to Flippin' Steve, at all, or watched any of his stuff?
No.
Dude, that dude is a wealth of knowledge, and on like he
Maybe
knows. Yeah, and he was getting into all the stuff that like tennis and music cards. Like he collects like tons of like Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix music. Like he's all into, and yeah.
Well, I've been thinking about starting a podcast for a while again, with but doing it non-sports, or maybe even just cards in general, and I would love to find a bunch of experts on a lot of different areas and bring them together and have some interesting discussions. So I think it's missing. I think that's missing from the space. Okay.
Are you in school right now? Aren't you doing like some financial stuff, or
Not like for an official degree or anything.
okay.
Yeah, I took a job as an analyst. So I'm analyzing like real estate deals mostly right now. And I'm taking a bunch of like real estate courses and other sorts of things to learn more about it as I'm doing it, and just basic corporate finance and accounting courses and other sorts of things.
Okay.
Doing like a fairly cheap sort of like MBA.
Gotcha. Okay.
But not actually getting the degree. Question: how come retro buttons top? Question.
I don't have my top button. Yeah.
Fake out.
This is just what happens when you get your shirts dry clean. They stay a little bit crispy, but
What you take in retro? I'm taking medical microbio. My God, microbia. Oh Jesus.
I'm taking right now. What am I in right now? Right now, I think I'm in like microeconomics and like some business math class. Basically, I'm going for like a finance degree. So lots of math, lots of stats, lots of accounting, all that fun stuff. So
Taco Bell or Wendy's, just for you. People want to know.
Oof.
All of Nick's knowledge here,
Yeah.
Knowledge. We're really getting into it.
Yeah, my 27 years of life. This is what it's all culminated to. I don't know. I think I'm gonna snap. Ooh, Taco Bell. Ooh, I don't know. Like, what about you?
Wendy's for me of the two.
Okay.
I mean, would I go to Taco Bell once in a while? Sure. You know,
Yeah, I mean, neither of them, honestly, but
for sure. Well, hopefully.
drunk at 2 a.m. It's like, ooh, you got
Yeah,
limited options.
I used to go to Taco Bell in high school with some guys. We used to go to IHOP a lot though, because it was the only thing 24-hour.
Oh, IHOP, dude. Oh my god. IHOP
4
slaps.
in
I
the
haven't
morning,
been there in a minute.
every single night during the summer.
Have you been staying out late, like at these collecticons and stuff? Are you a party animal, Jake, secretly, or are you a?
I in college, like my first 2 years of college, I went out like 4 or 5 nights a week. So I was pretty but I'm a fairly introverted guy, but I like being in those. But like a lot of it's like one-on-one conversations, and then all my friends, and I did like drinking and doing some other stuff back then. So but now I'm like just when I'm with college friends or high school friends, and I've always been like a social drinker, but never like a personal. Like I don't drink ever if I'm by myself. Like I just, but like socially, I always like that sort of stuff. So just fun. But yeah. How about you? Are you a partier?
No, not really at all. Same thing as you. Like we don't really buy like alcohol for the house. I mean, every once in a while or something. Maybe if we're having like a taco night, buy a little tequila or something like that. But mainly just socially for sure.
You got it. No problem. I took it off.
Oh my god. Yeah, these are some real serious questions here, folks. I appreciate it. I guess I just bring that troll energy to the stream.
We're making the most out of Nick's visit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you ever want to know about dead TCGs no one cares about, hit me up. But Taco Bell, we're here for it. We're here for the Taco Bell questions.
Dude, for the content. You gotta crack that amazing rare app for the content.
Will Black Label Amazing Rare ever be cracked in it? Man, like I like Josh a lot, dude, but when he bought that Kyogre, I was like, dog, what are you doing? That's so expensive for that. But collectors value stuff how they value stuff, I guess. So no hate.
I think this is probably a good serious question, fairly serious to end on.
Yeah, for sure.
And we can take now. People are just like asking a bunch of questions in a row. Are any of these real? One of them is real. The other two are not.
Could Taco Bell burritos be Reese? That's so good. Do you want to start with this one? Because I agree, this is a serious.
Changes. So Fanatics is a really interesting company. They have so many different downlines going on right now. They're getting into so many different things beyond just cards. It'll be really interesting to see how all of that pans out. It's a massive company with a massive amount of money. I actually have a family friend who's working there right now, and multiple people, and was having an interesting conversation with her about exactly what's going on there. What's your specific question? Will there be a big change? So part of what I was saying earlier is like I would expect Topps to like go more into these non-sport things and maybe take it a little bit more seriously and put some more effort. As far as on the sports side, I think Fanatics is buying these things out for a lot of money. You'd think that they're gonna be putting in a lot of money into it, and you're probably gonna see some like really cool varied stuff. Seems like a company that knows what they're doing. Only time will tell, I guess. But I think it also just shows the overall. There's going to be a lot of like collaborations with bringing more athletes in and all sorts of stuff. Now, of course, there's always been that. I mean, you have signatures and you have patches and you have all these things from athletes. But like Fanatics is like all the verticals that they're getting into. They're going to have so much reach and so much resource and so many connections with all these people. Should be interesting to see what they come up with. I don't have anything too much to add other than that. What are your thoughts?
What I will say, so it was a sports card investor. He did a holiday special where he like over a weekend he did like 3 back-to-back streams, I want to say. I don't know if you watched that, but one of the interviews he had was with Josh Luber, who used to be the CEO, I want to say, of StockX, and now is like the CEO or one of the higher ups at Fanatics. But he interviewed him, and if Danny, if you haven't seen that, like I highly recommend going back and watching that. But basically, what he said was like he sounds like he gets it. He also wrote an article that like some of you might have read called "Trading Cards Are Cool Again." It's pretty in depth. It talks about how they threw all the sports product off of the boat or whatever into the water because there was too much. He goes through all the history and stuff like that. But the key thing I took away from the interview was that he understands that sports collectors are tired of what you were kind of talking about earlier, which is just like there's too many different refractors, too many different 101s, too many, and it's kind of created this like burnout a little bit. So he is knowledgeable and understand, like he's on the ground floor. Like he's not up here just saying like we're making the product, you're just going to take what we give you. He genuinely wants to make a product that collectors are excited about again. So I think that the Fanatics top stuff is going to be sick. I really do. And I agree with Jake. I think that they're going to spread out and do a lot of different things because there's demand for it now, right? Like there might not have been as much demand for the Star Warses and the Marvels 5-10 years ago. Now there's demand for it, and it'll make these companies want to branch out and do and take a chance, on a different IP. So yeah. And I mean, you've kind of been seeing that a little bit, right? Like they have Stranger Things cards and stuff like that. Like Stranger Things was a massive hit. So I just think you're going to see a lot of stuff like that moving forward. So
yeah, you and I see things the same with all that stuff. Yeah, one last bot to end the night. Got him. All right.
yeah, man, I'm excited to meet you in Denver. I'm excited to meet everybody in Denver, but I think it's going to be a really good time. I'm excited to have, good conversations and just have fun with everybody. It's going to be good.
We're gonna have a blast, dude. It's gonna be great. And we're gonna be just looking at a bunch of cards, probably making some stupid decisions with opening a bunch of stuff we shouldn't. It'll be a great time.
I know. It's better when you brick with friends, though, right? Like at least you got people there consoling you about it. So
yeah, and it's like hilarious. Like I came home with like $14,000 just in cash, like straight bills, and I spent that like I bought some like packs and opened some, because when you have that type of like you make such stupid decisions when you have all that cash.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's this? I have no idea what this is going to be.
Is that an eBay authenticity thing?
Got an eBay authentic case. That means it's got to be a super valuable card. Valuable Star Wars. Oh, okay. So this is a 1/1 Snoke auto I bought.
That's crazy. How much was that?
I'm a big fan. I'm gonna have you guess. I'm a big fan of Andy Serkis, who does Golem, the voice of Golem. He's also Snoke. And this is his auto, and I'm a big fan of him. I think he's an incredible actor and amazing. What do you think? What do you got? Let's get some guesses in the chat here. So it's a 1/1. I'll give you the odds of pulling the card. So the odds of pulling the card. So the booster boxes are it's not a booster box. It actually comes in one. You get one card, but it's about $100. And to pull this is the variation. To pull this variation, I believe offhand it's one in 1,500 $100 boxes.
Does that come out of Masterwork?
This comes out of the Signature Series.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's get some guesses.
I'm gonna guess 475.
475. Okay. No guesses in the chat.
Well, it had to be at least 200 to be authenticated, Nathan says. Yeah, that's true.
1,500. If it was anyone else, they'd have paid 1,000. Jake would have paid 60.
I know, right? I can imagine Pokenomics in 10 years. Jake's like, I was buying these Snoke Auto 101s for $10. No one wanted these. Everyone was telling everybody else, no, go collect this, go collect this. I was buying these for $10 because they were undervalued.
Nesto, $45. All right. 275 range of me. Okay. You got 1,500. So you got a range. So I paid $250.
Okay.
$250. And I'm gonna grade it. I'm hoping it gets a 10. It looks pretty good.
Is that from PC?
And I'm a big fan of him. Yeah. So part of the reason I bought it is I'm just a big fan of the actor. Normally I'm mixed on autos. I have a mixed feeling towards autos on these types of cards. But I like Snoke a lot as a character. It's insanely hard to pull this card, and I like the character, so that's why I bought it.
What made you get? I know you probably got to go. It's later. I'm West Coast time, but what made you get into like I know you like Star Wars, but was it just you were bored with other things and were getting like really engaged, or you saw value, or a combination of both? What kind of like spurred you to move towards Star Wars?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, just I'm always looking for new things. I'm interested in new things. I watched the Marvel very carefully. I was involved in the Marvel market, but more in the Impel side of it in the 90s stuff. I didn't do the PMGs. And I just sort of watched what happened there, and I see some similarities. I also saw some influencers start to get into it. It started to tick up. I saw it seeing a little bit more out there. I felt like now is probably a perfect time. And just with the down market now, there's risk involved in whatever. I also just love the cards. Like I'm psyched to be building this out. My goal is to build out this Harry Potter. I'm hoping eventually they're going to do Lord of the Rings eventually. Like these are all my favorite IPs. And so I'm going to be like collecting heavily in all of these. Also, obviously want to do the museum one day. So all of this is in preparation to just showcase all of these like sick IPs over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's insane that people are paying $100 for the boxes when it's a 1 in 1,500 or something like that to pull this. And you can just buy it for $250. It's just like, it's bananas. It is bananas how expensive sealed product is in that hobby versus Pokemon. So it's crazy.
Yeah. It definitely holds a premium, like non-sports. Sports in general is just like not. There's kid product, and again, there's stuff that's going to be at Target or whatever, but it's just not accessible to the average person looking to drop like $100 so that they can get a good opening experience. You know what I mean? Like $100 might be like a pack. So.
And I think $1,500, by the way, and is very like makes a lot of sense. Like $1,000 to $1,500 is what I would expect something to go for, even in this market. And if I were to resell it, it might immediately I could maybe sell it for that. Because part of it is that these one-of-ones, like people just don't see them. The one who would actually want it, it's such a small market. I know a guy who just paid $15,000 for a one-of-one Mace Windu. So,
is it on card auto though?
On card auto, yeah.
I mean, I could see that. Samuel L's a pretty big actor. Yeah, and Mace Windu's a badass too.
Yeah, Mace Windu's a cool character, not like an absolute center stage character, but certainly one of the coolest Jedis for sure.
I was so mad. I was so mad when Anakin murked him. I was like, man, and in such the weakest way too. Like if he was gonna go out, I wanted it to be in some epic battle, not with like having this dude who was supposed to be on your side snake you. That was so sad to see. That was disappointing.
Yep. All right. I think that's it for tonight. Appreciate all of you guys for watching. Please go subscribe to what's the channel called?
Retrospecs.
You can find his channel on YouTube. Retrospecs.
Yes, sir.
Maybe Mason can throw a link, or someone can throw a link. And I will after the video gets all that stuff. But yeah, Nick is a great guy. Retrospecs. Great dude. He's going to be making some really smart, good content, I'm sure, on all sorts of great things. So definitely follow there. If you can subscribe to my channel, if you're not already subscribed, probably every single person of the 85 people subscribed here, like mostly. But if you're not, I would greatly appreciate it. I really want to get to 10,000. And once I'm at 10,000, I'm done. I don't even care if I get it anymore. That's my goal. When I started this channel is I'm going to make videos until I get to 1 million views and 10,000 subscribers, or just die trying.
I think you get 10K for sure. I think so. And I know you're talking about you want to do like some game show stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's possible, man. I think you should do like some sort of vlog stuff too if you're going to be going to events. Maybe it doesn't even need to be like live, just like maybe like your on the spot thoughts really quick, you know, just like, hey, I'm here, I just talked to this guy at this table here, and maybe make like a 10-minute video or something, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
could be valuable for people too, because you were talking about stuff in the Patreon conversations you were having and things like that. And that kind of information, firsthand information for people that can't be there, that could be like extremely valuable too.
Yeah, I think I don't like doing that because it takes me out of just like enjoying it, and then
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, I just don't care. Like I really don't care about growing that much. But I would like to get to 10K just as that would be satisfying. Like that would be a cool milestone for me. Um and yeah, and whatever. I also like the bigger, if we get a little bit bigger, it will also give us like a little bit more credibility and pull to like me to blanket reach out to random people I have no relationship with. Like obviously like I'm known within some small niches, but it will allow me even more kind of reach, and I can bring in more cool people. Like I've started to meet some like executives at some certain at companies who definitely would be down to come on because I've been able to talk to them in person and develop a little bit of a relationship. But you know, having a slightly larger channel, obviously like it doesn't really matter like views or what should matter at the end of the day, and like actual engagement, which we have great amount. But the reality is like some people, they just look at the amount and they're like, worth my time, not worth my time. And so just getting to that round number would be helpful for all of us actually, because I'd be able to just do cooler things and get more people on. Definitely won't be doing any open mouth thumbnails or any thumbnails in general. You guys know how I choose my thumbnails. So YouTube gives me 3 options that just it just puts in
Yeah.
and I choose the least bad one. And sometimes all 3 are terrible, and I still just choose one of them.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and that's how I'm looking to do it. So
You're creative though, like you're a music. You should try, man. You should hop on Canva one day.
yeah,
It's not fun to you? I don't. It's kind of okay.
I like being this way, and I just want to get to 10,000 subscribers. That's all.
Okay. All right, that's fair. That's fair.
That's the truth. I do want to do the game show stuff because I really have been trying to figure out fun ways to give away stuff to people who are actually knowledgeable and care, and this will be a good way to do that. Like I don't want to just do a random giveaway on the channel, and then just like someone comes for one video, subscribes and leaves a comment, and then like the people who have been here the entire time and like super engaged and are actually knowledgeable like don't win it. You know, I want the people who like are engaged to win. So
all right, well you have to have me on when you do the Japanese night, because that's where I'm at with it. So
yeah, we'll figure out a way to get to, you know, we want it to be random, like who the contestants, so it's like fair, but we'll figure out like how we do that, and I'm sure that will be time. I'm sure we'll have some episodes where we can just bring like the usual suspects on to all compete against each other, because it'll be like funny to see like some of the usuals in Discord compete. It'd be funny.
Gotta get Ray on there, dude. Oh my god.
I'll get a kick out of it. Yeah, just bring the biggest characters in Discord on all together on the same.
Ah yes, Trainer Max here. I'll come to win Jake's giveaway.
Max
Also, yeah, if he shows Fossil Muck one more time though, I'm out the Discord.
Well, we got a bunch of shills. We got a bunch of shills.
Yeah, we do. Invest in Quaxley. We'll end it on that. But nah, man, I really appreciate you having me on. It's good to, you know, like I have a lot of homies I could talk to about Pokemon or whatever, and they're interested in some other stuff. Ooh, that's kind of cool.
5, baby. Out of 5 Ahsoka.
I've seen Jason collecting. I don't know the name of that insert, but I've seen him collecting cards that look similar to that. But yeah,
they're cool.
Yeah, it's harder to find people to talk to about like niche weird stuff, you know what I mean? So it's cool to talk about that for sure. So
well, you and Swami were the people I had in mind for this conversation, so I'm glad he was able to jump on a little bit too, and thank you for hanging out the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And yeah, we'll obviously be in touch very soon. Probably talk tomorrow. So it would be fun to bring Rafi on too for this in the future, this type of stuff. Rafi's into all sorts of things right now.
Yeah, I actually looked into what was he was talking about, Young Jedi or something, wasn't it?
Ooh, I don't even know.
Yeah, wasn't feeling it as much as the other Star Wars cards he was showing.
Oh
but-
baby, George Takei, baby.
Is that one of the oh my god, what are they? The
I just had to pick this up. It was so cheap, and I thought George
Oh
Takei
my God.
auto on this is like hilarious to get a George
the
Takei.
Vice Lords. That's what they or the Viceroys. The Viceroys, is that what they are?
Yeah,
Is that what that is? Okay, yeah.
hilarious. And I had no idea that George Takei, or I'm saying Takei, it's Takei, right? George Takei. How do you say his
I
name?
think so. Have you ever seen Yu Yu Hakusho score?
Yeah. Someone was just talking to me about that. Was it you?
Maybe. I posted some in the Discord because I just bought like a case of the booster boxes, and then I bought a bunch of loose packs, and I've been opening. I kind of want to like grade these out, and anyways, dude, we could we could go forever shilling all sorts of stuff, but
Yeah.
alrighty, man.
Good night.
Yep.
It's been a
Have a good
pleasure.
rest of your
Thank
night.
you all for hanging out with us. We appreciate you, and see you in the next one.
All right. Peace, folks.